ॐ ज्ञानतिमिरान्धस्य ज्ञानाञ्जनशलाकया चक्षुरुन्मिलितं येन तस्मै श्रीगुरवे नमः। श्रीचैतन्यमनोभीष्टं स्थापितं येन भूतले स्वयं रूप कदा मह्यं ददाति स्वपदान्तिकम्। नमो विष्णुपादाय कृष्णप्रेष्ठाय भूतले श्रीमते भक्ति वेदांत स्वामिनिति नामिने। नमस्ते सारस्वते देवे गौरवाणी प्रचारिणे निर्विशेष शून्यवादी पाश्चात्य देशतारिणे। वंदेहम श्रीगुरु श्रीयुतापदकमलं श्रीगुरुन् वैष्णवांश्च श्रीरूपं साग्रजातं सहगना रघुनाथान्वितं तं सजीवं साद्वैतं सावधूतं परिजना सहितं कृष्णा चैतन्य देवं श्रीराधा कृष्ण पादान् सहगना ललिता श्री विशाखान्वितांश्च। हे कृष्णा करुणा सिंधु दीनबंधु जगतपते गोपेशा गोपिका कांत राधा कांत नमोस्तुते। तप्त कांचन गौरांगी राधे वृंदावनेश्वरी वृषभानुसुते देवी प्रणमामि हरिप्रिये। वाञ्छा कल्पतरुभ्यस्य कृपा सिन्धुभ्य एव च पतितानां पावनेभ्यो वैष्णवेभ्यो नमो नमः। जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्रीवासादि श्री गौर भक्त वृंदा। हरे कृष्णा कृष्ण कृष्ण हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे। श्रील प्रभुपाद की जय। ग्रंथराज श्रीमद् भागवतम की जय। सर्वशास्त्रादि पीयूष सर्व वैदिक सत्वर सर्व सिद्धांत रत्नाद्य सर्वलोकैक दृक्प्रद सर्व भागवत प्राण श्रीमद् भागवतो प्रभु कलिदंतोतिदादित्य श्री कृष्ण परिवर्तिता परमानंद पाठाय प्रेम वर्ष अक्षराय ते सर्वद सर्व सेवाय श्री कृष्णाय नमोस्तुते। मद एक बंधु मद संगीन मद गुरु मन महाधन मन निस्तारक मन भाग्य मन आनंद नमोस्तुते। असाधु साधु तादाइन अति नीचोत ताकर हाना मुंचा कदाचिन्मान प्रेम न हृत कंथयो स्पुरः। ओम नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय ओम नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय ओम नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय। नारायण नमस्कृत्यं नरं चैव नरोत्तमं देवीं सरस्वतीं व्यासं ततो जय मुदीरे नष्टप्रायेषु भद्रेषु नित्यं भागवत सेवया भगवती उत्तम श्लोके भक्तिर्भवति नैष्टिकी शृण्वतां स्वकथा कृष्ण पुण्यश्रवण कीर्तनम हृदयन्तस्तु अभद्राणि विदुनोति सुहृत्सताम्। ग्रंथराज श्रीमद् भागवतम की जय। Hare Krishna, everyone. Thank you all so much for joining this Sunday morning. So today we'll be discussing chapter 3 of Canto 2. Before we start, would anyone like to share any quick realizations from last time's discussion?
I really was meditating on the point that you made about how the ears are like cups and how we need to just fill the ears with Harikatha and they should be overflowing with Harikatha. I really like that image.
See that last verse of the chapter 2, Pibanti ye bhagavata atmata satam punanti ye vishaya. I'm sorry, what's it? Kathamritam Shravana Puteshu Samritam. Kathamrita Shravana Puteshu. Puteshu is the cup, right? Samritam, you have to overfill the cup, you have to completely fill the cup. That's very much. Thank you. And this is actually the conclusion of Sukadev Goswami, right? In this, the last section of chapter 2, basically he's actually giving his own conclusion of what he considers as the most auspicious path, right? Nahi ato Nahi atonya Shiva Panta. That there's no more auspicious path than engaging in devotional service to Krishna. Right? Okay, thank you. Anyone else?
Hare Krishna Prabhuji. I like the point that Prabhupada mentions in the purport of text 33 that Lord should be remembered everywhere and he should be glorified everywhere and always.
So Thank you, Mati. So if you see in the first and the second chapter, so we have like 3 verses which are like very similar, which give the conclusion of Sukadeva Goswami. So 2.1.5, Tasmat Bharata Sarvatma Bhagwan Ishvaro Hari Shrotavya Kirtitavyasya Smartavyasya Cha Ishtatabhaya. Right? So that is one conclusion. What is the conclusion? That one should chant, one should hear Shrotavya Kirtitavyasya Smartavyasya. One should actually remember that Supreme Personality of God. Right? And then he typed Bhagwan Ishvara Hari. Then 2.1.14, 2.1.11, he says, Etan nirvidyamananam ichchatam akuto bhoyam yoginam api nirnitam hare namanu kirtanam. So following the great authorities, the constant chanting of the Lord's holy name is the conclusion there. And then further, further in 2.2.36, Tasmat Sarvatmana Rajan Hari Sarvatra Sarvada Shrotavya Kirtitavyasya Smartavya Bhagwan. So same words, Shrotavya, Kirtitavya, Smartavya. Right? Three things. We have to chant, we have to hear, we have to remember that Supreme Personality of God. Okay, and how often should we do that? Sarvatra Sarvada. At all times, in all circumstances, we should actually chant, hear, chant, and remember that Supreme Personality of God. Okay. And one more verse is, yeah, sure. And then 1.2.14 is also similar. So 1.2.14, 2.1.5, and 2.2.36, very similar verses. Okay, so now we'll start with chapter 3. Chapter 3 is titled Pure Devotional Service, the Change in Heart. Okay, so we have the list of names. Okay, so maybe who would like to start?
Maybe Vijay Radhika Mataji.
Yeah, okay, you can start Sanskrit.
Chapter 3, text 1. Shishuka uvacha evam etan nigatitam prishtvan yad bhavan mama nirnam yan mrinyamananam manusheshu manishinam.
Hare Krishna. Translation. Sri Shukadeva Goswami said, Maharaj Parikshit, as you have inquired from me as to the duty of the intelligent man who is on the threshold of death, so I have answered you. Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Mati. So you see my screen. So basically, this is the overview of the chapter 3. So from text, basically text 1 is he's actually saying that I have responded to your question. And what was the question? What is the duty of a person who's going to die? Right. So even there, the question had the word Mriyamananam. Mriyamananam. Same word is that here. Mriyamananam refers to those who are on the threshold of death. Right. So he's saying that you asked me this question about what's the duty of people, Manushya, at Nrinam, Manusheshu, Manishinam, right? Who are on the threshold of death. And I have given you the answer in explaining 2 parts of yoga, right? One part of yoga is those who actually meditate on the Virat Rupa. Second part of yoga, those who actually meditate on the Paramatma, right? And then he has actually said that among all the living entities, those who are wise, they actually take to the process of hearing, glorifying, and remembering the Supreme Personality of God. So hence he's saying, I have given you the answer. Right? So the first word, Sukadeva Goswami is saying, I have answered your question. Now from text 2 all the way to text 12, actually text 2 to text 9, it talks of demigod worship. Right? So we have actually covered so many different, we talked 2 parts of Astanga Yoga. Then second chapter, in starting, he actually also rejected Karma Kanda. Now he's actually talking of demigod worship, right? And why does this section come? And I'll come to the connection. Why does this section come? Is basically in this first verse, he actually uses the word Manishina. Manishina means those who are actually intelligent. What do? They do hearing, chanting, remembering of the Supreme Personality of God. Now, those who are not Manishina, what do? They actually do demigod worship. right? Even in Bhagavad Gita, what does Krishna say? How does he describe those people who actually worship demigods? Alpamedasa. Alpamedasa means those who are actually less intelligent. Right? So those who are not Manishina, they actually worship different demigods for fulfilling different desires. So from text 2 to text 9 is okay. If you want this, you worship this demigod. If you want this opulence, so all that description is there. Then from 10 to 12, he actually comes back and again concludes that pure devotional service is the highest. Right. So again, repeatedly in the first 3 chapters of the second canto, we hear the conclusive statement of how devotional service is the perfection. And then after that, from text 13 onwards, so Sukadev Goswami has answered the question. Now Sonak Rishi is actually speaking to Suta Goswami. So it's like Sukadev Goswami Maharaj Parikshit, and then we go one step behind, and then Sonak Rishi is telling Sukadev Goswami, Suta Goswami, that what he has spoken. Okay, he actually basically expresses his eagerness to hear more. Then what did Sukadev Goswami and Maharaj Parikshit actually speak? Right? And that, what Shaunak Rishi tells Suta Goswami, that is basically the rest of the chapter. Okay, so it is a relatively smaller chapter compared to other chapters. So 2 main sections. One is demigod worship. Second is how Shaunak Rishi is inspiring Suta Goswami to speak. Okay. Okay, so let's come back to text number 1. So he says, Evam eta nigatitam. Nigatitam means I have answered. Prishtavan. Prishtavan means what you have inquired. And Mriya Manana means one who is on the threshold of that. And then Manusheshu Manishina. Manusheshu referring to all living entities. And Manishina, those who are intelligent among them. So how does that Manisheshu Manishinam actually come? That refers to, yes, Astanga Yoga 2 parts. But those who are really intelligent, they take to Tasmat Sarvatma Rajan, Hari Sarvata Sada, Shotavya Kirtavyasya, Smartavyasya, Smartavyo Bhagavan Nrinam. Right? So again, that Nrinam is that common word. Right? Okay. Then the purport, Prabhupada is actually elaborating, and he's saying that millions and billions of men and women, almost all of them are not Manishina. Right? The word says Manishina, but Prabhupada says most of the people are not Manishina. Why they are not Manishina? Because they have no knowledge of the soul beyond the body and the mind. They associate themselves with the body, associate themselves with the mind, with no knowledge of the soul. Now, out of all these personalities, millions and billions of people, there may be one who may actually inquire about the soul beyond the body and the mind. Right? So it's almost like layers we are talking about. Okay. And out of those who inquire about, okay, who am I? If someone says, okay, point to yourself, where do I point? Who is that one person I can identify? Right? And then he actually comes to, let's say one among them may turn to the Bhagavad Gita, may turn to the Vedas, may turn to study Srimad Bhagavatam. But even those who come in contact with Bhagavad Gita, only one who actually comes in contact with the pure devotee of Krishna can really understand these books. Right? So 4 levels we have come. Mostly people are not intelligent. Why? Because they don't know anything beyond the body and mind. Out of those, one may actually inquire, what is my situation? Who I really am? Out of those, one may actually come to the point of turning to Bhagavad Gita or the Vedas. Out of those, one may be fortunate to come in contact with the bona fide spiritual master. And out of those, one may actually know who is Krishna in truth, Tattvataha. So rare is the understanding of Krishna in Tattvataha, in truth. Right? So Prabhupada is actually making the point that Manishinam here, intelligent, that intelligent is that person finally who actually understands Krishna in Tattvataha. And that Tattvataha can come only by chanting, remembering, and hearing about the Supreme Personality of God. And how can we finally come to that 5th stage? Only by practicing Bhakti Yoga. So Prabhupada, the whole Bhakti Yoga process is that for a revival of that lost relationship with Krishna. So the intelligent class of human being must take a serious note of this opportunity. Right? So those who are thoughtful, those who are intelligent, they should understand the importance of this opportunity and take to devotional service of Krishna. Okay, so Manishina is basically must therefore take to the lotus feet of Lord Krishna and fully engage himself in the devotional service, hearing, chanting of the holy name and pastimes of the Lord, which are all Hari Kathamrita. Right? He must take to the lotus feet of the Lord and must always engage in Hari Kathamrita. Prabhupada in the purport also points out that how Lord Krishna, out of his causeless mercy, has prepared the Vedic literatures. Right? And then he refers to a section of first canto, 7th chapter, where Vyasadeva, where he's actually meditating, and he's saying, Anartho Pashanam Shakshat, Bhakti Yogam Adokshaje, Lokasya Janato Vidvam Chakre Satvata Samhita. Actually, in this verse, he says that seeing the material miseries of people and seeing that the only process by which the material miseries of people can be vanquished is devotional service, then Vyasadeva, contemplating this, he actually compiled the Srimad Bhagavatam for the benefit of all people. Right? So the Lord has himself prepared these Vedic literatures for our benefit. So those who are actually intelligent must take shelter of these Vedic literatures. So that's Prabhupada's point. Okay, let's go to the next verse, the text 2 to text 7.
Brahma Varchasa Kamastu Yajeta Brahmanapatim Indram Indriya Kamastu Praja Kama Prajapatin Devi Mayam to Krishna to Shri Kamas Tejas Kamo Vibhavasun Vasu Kamo Vasun Rudran Virya Kamo Taviryavan Anadya Kamastvadita Tim Svarga Kamo Dite Sutan Vishwan Devan Rajya Kama Sadhyan Samsadako Visham Ayus Kamo Shvinao Devo Pushti Kama Ilam Yajet Pratishta Kama Purusho Rodhasi Lokamataro Rupa Bhi Kamo Gandharvan Stri Kamo Psara Urvashim Adipatya Kama Sarvesham Yajeta Parameshtinam Yagyam Yajet Yashas Kama Kosha Kama Prachetasam Vidya Kamastu Girisham Dama Patyarta Umam Satim.
One who desires to be absorbed in the impersonal Brahma Jyoti effulgence should worship the master of the Vedas, Lord Brahma, or Bharaspati, the learned priest. One who desires powerful sex should worship the heavenly king Indra. And one who desires good progeny should worship the great progenitors called the Prajapatis. One who desires good fortune should worship Durga Devi, the superintendent of the material world. One desiring to be very powerful should worship fire, and one who aspires only after money should worship the Vasus. One should worship the Rudra incarnations of Lord Shiva if he wants to be a great hero. One who wants a large stock of grains should worship Aditi. One who desires to attain the heavenly planets should worship the sons of Aditi. One who desires a worldly kingdom should worship Vishwadeva, and one who wants to be popular with the general mass of population should worship the Sadhya demigod. One who desires a long span of life should worship the demigods known as the Ashwini Kumaras, and a person desiring strongly built body should worship the earth. One who desires stability in his post should worship the horizon and the earth combined. One who desires to be beautiful should worship the beautiful residents of the Gandharva planet, and one who desires a good wife should worship the Apsaras and Urvashi society girls of the heavenly kingdom. One who desires domination over others should worship Lord Brahma, the head of the universe. One who desires tangible fame should worship the personality of Godhead, and one who desires a good bank balance should worship the demigod Varuna. If one desires to be a greatly learned man, he should worship Lord Shiva, and if one desires a good martial relation, he should worship the chaste goddess Uma, the wife of Lord Shiva. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. So, so basically in these verses, you can see my screen, you have like almost a list of what are the desires and which demigod is actually can fulfill those desires. So absorption, impersonal Brahmajyoti, worship Brahma, powerful sex, Indra, good progeny, Prajapati, Daksha. So this is basically the entire list. So from text 2 to text 7 is item number 1 all the way to 21. Right? So 21 different personality desire, and the personality that who less intelligent people worship is actually listed here. Right?
Prabhuji, who is Vishwa Deva and Sadhya?
They're all like demigods, different demigods. So people of higher, they're like how many? 33 million, 333 million. Sorry, 330 million demigods. So they're all like different categories of demigods. So there are so many. So basically Vishwadeva and Sadhya are again different demigods. Okay. So Prabhupada in the purport is actually elaborating on the point that how different people have different modes of worship. Right? Even in Bhagavad Gita, this point is actually made where Krishna tells Arjun that because people are situated in different modes of material nature, they worship different demigods. Right? So and then Prabhupada makes a point that because people desire success in particular subjects, they actually approach all these different demigods. And he also gives the example of Ravan. Ravan became so powerful that and how did he become powerful? By worshipping Lord Shiva. And he became so powerful that other demigods were actually afraid of Ravan. So Prabhupada makes a point. So, and then Prabhupada says, why these demigod worshippers are said to be not Manishina? Why are they less intelligent? Right? So, what is the answer to this question?
They don't get permanent blessings. Like whatever they get is the temporary.
So the results are temporary, right? Their worship, their mode of worship is temporary. The results are temporary, and then after they reach the planet of demigods, they come back to this material world again, to this earthly planet again. Yes. Okay. What else? Why is that form of worship less intelligent?
Because they cannot grant anything beyond this material world.
Okay, they cannot grant us anything beyond this material world. Okay.
Which an intelligent person should water the root instead of watering the leaves. Everything comes from Krishna.
Yes, very good example. Bhagavatam itself gives that example of how Krishna is the root and all the different demigods are like the different limbs of the Supreme Personality of God. So if you water the root, then everyone is satisfied. So Prabhupada is actually making a point in the purport. He quotes Bhagavad Gita 7:20. Kamastaise Rita Jnana Prapadyante Anya Devata. So Rita Jnana means those who are devoid of Jnana, knowledge. Right? So less intelligent people, they actually surrender to demigods and follow the particular rules and regulations of worship according to their own natures. And Prabhupada says, why are they less intelligent? And he actually makes a point because they are not solving the real problem of life. The real problem of life is actually birth, death, old age, disease. So by actually even taking to demigod worship, are they anyway solving these problems? No. You'll get promoted to higher heavenly planets, but then you again come back. So that birth, death, old age, disease is actually not solved. Right? So Prabhupada, again, he gives another comparison here. That out of 8.4 million species of life, the human form is actually rare and valuable. And he actually makes a point that if you actually consider, okay, so 8.4 million species, out of that, human form is very rare. So how Prahlad Maharaj actually makes this one, Komara Acharit Pragya, Dharman Bhagavatan Iha, Dullabam Manusham Janma, Tadapi Adhruvam Arthadam. Right? Adhruvam and Arthadam, these are very important words. Adhruvam means this human form of life is temporary, but it is Arthadam. Arthadam means it is of greatest value. Why? Because in the human form of life, you can actually solve the real problem of birth, old age, disease, and death. Right? And demigod worship is actually not solving that problem, and hence it is less intelligent. So among 8.4 million species, very rare is the human species, right? Out of those human species, out of human beings, very rare are those people who are conscious of the real problems of life. And out of those who are even conscious of the real problems of life, it is very rare that someone can appreciate Srimad Bhagavatam. So both, like, why do we give this comparison? Even in teachings of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu to Rupa Goswami, he gives this comparison. So many living entities, out of that some are moving, some are non-moving. In moving, there are so many living entities. Out of the one rare is human beings. Out of human beings, some rare is those who are actually, asking questions beyond sense gratification. Out of those, some may come to the Vedas. Out of those, why is this comparison actually given? And Prabhupada explained the same point in the previous purport and this purport. Why is this comparison actually given? Then I have to unmute and say. These levels of rare, 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 and this is most rare.
Well, so we can value what we have and feel very fortunate that we have such a valuable gift.
Yeah, to actually understand the importance of human form of life. So many living entities are so rare as human form. Out of those rare human form of life, so rare to actually come in contact with the Bhagavad Gita. Out of those, so rare to come in contact with the pure devotee like Srila Prabhupada. Right? Out of, that's the point. That's why Prabhupada, again, both the purpose, he actually makes the same point. And then he says, Parikshit Maharaj, he was Manishina. Why? Because he actually left all material enjoyment and he completely surrendered unto the Supreme Personality of God. Okay. So next text number 8. So we are continuing the list in text number 8.
Dharmartha utama shlokam tantu tanvan pitrin yajet raksha kama punya janan ojas kamo marutkanan.
Okay, who's it?
Hare Krishna. One should worship Lord Vishnu or is a devotee for spiritual advancement in knowledge and for protection of heredity and advancement of a dynasty. One should worship the various demigods. Hare Krishna.
So text number 8, further points are actually mentioned. So in Subodhini, the table is there. So if you need if you would like to get more spiritual advancement in knowledge, then you worship Lord Vishnu. Protection of heredity, advancement of a dynasty, then you worship so many different demigods. Right? So it says, dharma, artha, and then tantuhu, tanma, desiring increase of descendants, then you worship presence of Pitraloka. Okay, so let's continue. Yeah, okay, text number 9. Continue.
Rajakamo manum devan nirtim tvabhi charan yajet kamo yajet somam akama purusham param.
Hare Krishna. One who desires domination over a kingdom or an empire should worship the Manus. One who desires victory over an enemy should worship the demons, and one who desires sense gratification should worship the moon. But one who desires nothing of material enjoyment should worship the Supreme Personality of Godhead.
So it says, text 9, further the list continues, and he says, Rajakama. Rajakama means those who are desiring an empire, they can worship Manus. Then victory over enemy, they can worship the demons. Then Kama, desire sense gratification, they can worship the moon. So that 26 items are there, and that completes the list, right? But then there is one last line where it says, Akamaha Purusham Param. If someone is desiring to be free of all these material desires, then he should actually worship the Supreme Personality of God. And the next verse actually elaborates on this particular theme. Right? So Prabhupada says, but one who desires nothing of material enjoyment should worship the Supreme Personality of God. So next verse is actually a very famous verse. I think many of you already know that verse. But here it actually starts off this that point. The point is already started in this verse. So Prabhupada in the purport, he makes the point that that actually a liberated person And so there are so many different kinds of enjoyments that is listed, right? There is powerful sex, good fortune, power, money, great hero, worldly kingdom, long span of life. All these opulences, enjoyments are actually given. But a person who is actually liberated, then for him, all this entire list is absolutely useless. And hence, that person is actually said to be akama, right? Akama means without all these material desires. Kama means desire, and akama means without all those material desires. Right? So, Prabhupada makes a point that how a transcendentalist, he has actually no material desires to be fulfilled, where a materialist has all types of desires to be fulfilled. Right? So, if you see, even in the second chapter of Bhagavad Gita, when Arjun asks Krishna, how do you define how do you identify a spiritual person? What is the first thing that Krishna says? The one who is actually free of material desires and who is self-satisfied. That is a spiritual person. Right? So that is the point. Akamaha, one who is actually free from material desires. Right? And then Prabhupada actually he quotes the verse Anya Bhilasita Sunyam Jnana Karmadi Anavritam. Right? Anya Abhilasha. Abhilasha means again desire. Anya Abhilasha, no other desire other than the desire to please Krishna. Right? So that is pure devotion service. Further, Prabhupada is making the point that people, because of different modes of material nature, because of desiring all these enjoyments, they worship so many demigods. And the reason is because they cannot control their senses. They cannot control their senses. And then he says the leaders of nonsensical persons are still more nonsensical because they preach openly and foolishly that one can worship any form of demigod and get the same result. The Prabhupada is talking of like how there is group of spiritual people. There's so many people who actually believe Yatomat Tatopat. Yatomat Tatopat. That or whatever you worship, whoever you worship, you'll get the same result. And Prabhupada said, is elaborating the purpose, he said, this is actually such a foolish thing. Which is the verse in the Bhagavad Gita that defeats this argument very clearly. Anyone wants to unmute and say?
Yanti Devan, Vrita.
Yeah, Yanti Devan, Vritan Devan. So Prabhupada actually quotes that verse in the next purport also you'll see. Prabhupada is quoting this verse. Now it clearly saying, if you worship demigods, you go to the planets of the demigods. Right? If you worship the Pitra, you'll go to the planets of Pitra. But if you worship Krishna, then you'll go to the spiritual world. So clearly it is actually saying that it is not that whoever you worship, you get the same result. It is normally the Mayavadis and the impersonalists who actually claim. Because they say, finally, yes, when the Lord actually comes, he takes a particular form. But finally, what is the highest? The impersonal Brahmajyoti. So all these forms of the different demigods are just manifestations of the impersonal Brahman so that we can actually finally attain the impersonal Brahman. So they say any form you worship, same result, you'll merge into the impersonal Brahman. But Prabhupada says this is as foolish as saying that you go to the airport, you're buying a ticket from India, you're buying a ticket to go to New York and expecting that now I'm going to reach India. Or Prabhupada gives an purport that if you buy a ticket to Bombay, it's not that you'll reach Bombay, you won't reach the Baroda or some other place. Whatever you're paying for, whatever efforts you're doing, whoever you're praying, that is the result you're going to get. So Prabhupada says the leaders are even more nonsensical because they are misleading innocent and say, oh, you like to do this? Okay, do that. It's okay. That's anything you do is okay, and you can do all your nonsense and still you'll attain the same result. Right? The Prabhupada says this is totally against Bhagavad Gita and Srimad Bhagavatam, this entire Mayavad philosophy of Yatomat Tatopat. Right? And this is actually, it is widely preached, because there's so much impersonalism even in India. This is a very widely preached concept. And they say this philosophy is good because then there is no fight on the base of religion. But they don't understand, the core point that, different demigods are there, but because of different modes of worship, people are worshipping different demigods. Okay.
Prabhuji, I have a question. So someone who is worshipping not the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna, not as Krishna, but as Lord Narsimhadev, for example. So where they go, what is their destination?
So the planet of Lord Narasimhadev. in Vaikuntha.
So there are different planets, right? Ramji,
Yeah.
there is Ayodhya, they will go to Ayodhya, right?
Yeah. So whoever is your Ishtadev, whoever you worship, then you will actually go to that. But worshipping any form of Vishnu is actually Manishina. It doesn't come in this category of worshipping any form of demigod, because demigods are within this material world. So you can attain any plans of demigods, but you will come back to this material world. Right? But if you attain any planet of Vaikuntha, Narsimha, Lord Ramchandra, then you'll never come back. That is your eternal. You have solved the problem of birth, old age, disease, and death. Yeah? Okay. So let's continue. Next verse.
Akama sarva kamo va moksha kama udaradhi tivrena bhakti yogena yajeta purusham param. A person who has broader intelligence, whether he be full of all material desire, without any material desire, or desiring liberation, must by all means worship the Supreme Whole, the personality of Godhead.
Right. So this verse is very famous. I think many of you already know this, but if you don't know, please memorize. This is a very important verse. So akama. So even in the previous verse, the last line, he talked of akama. So he's continuing with that point. Akamaha. Right? So here kamaha is actually referring to material desire. So akamaha, those who are free of material desire. Sarva kama, those who are full of material desires, basically the materialists, the karmis. And then moksha kama, those who are actually desiring liberation. So three categories: akama, sarva kama, moksha kama. Right? Now here Sukadeva Goswami is actually making the point: whether you are without material desires, whether you are full of material desires, or whether you are desiring liberation, still what should you do? This is again a conclusion here. Those who are udaradi, udaradi means one with broader intelligence. What should they do? They should still worship the Tivrena Bhakti Yogina Yajeta Purusham Param. You should worship the Purusham Param. And how should you do it? Tivrena Bhakti Yogina. Tivrena is actually, we'll discuss this word, with actually proper translation with great force. One should actually engage in devotional service to Krishna. Right? In the previous list, when we actually went through a different list on demigods, then there was a, let's say power, money, become a hero, become famous, long span. Maybe, maybe that there are some desires in the core of our heart, such desires. But that does not mean that we actually turn and worship the demigods. In spite of having those desires, Sukadeva Goswami is still saying, worship Krishna. Why? Why, in spite of those desires? Like I have those desire. Let's say I have a desire for a lot of money. Right? Then if I worship a demigod, that desire will be fulfilled, right? But why I should worship Krishna even though I have material desires? So actually this section is explained in Chaitanya Charitamrita. This is Madhya Lila, chapter 22, right? Text 33 onwards. You can read the entire section there where Krishna talks about this. Maybe I'll just quickly share my screen. So we'll just quickly go through a few verses where Krishna actually tells that if people come to me with material desire, what actually happens? Right? Why should they actually worship me? Share my screen. So let's see. So Chaitanya Charitamrita, let's go to Madhya 22. Okay. So from text number 33, we'll read. Okay. So right. So here, if you see text number 33, he says what? Krishna tumara hana yadi bale ek bara maya banda hoite Krishna tare kare para. It actually says one is immediately free from the clutches of Maya if he seriously and sincerely says, my dear Lord Krishna, although I have forgotten you for so many long years in this material world, today I am surrendering unto you. I am your sincere and serious servant. Please engage me in your service. So basically, in these first few verses, Krishna is actually making the point that even to worship a demigod, there's so many rules and regulations. There's so much effort that is required. But what is the result? That will come later on. It is actually nothing, right? Instead of that, if you turn to me, the worship of Krishna is one way so easy. And here Krishna is actually making the point. This is from Ramayana. Shakrit eva prapannosmi tavasmiti yachate abhayam sarvada tasmai dadamya etad vritam mama. It is my vow that if one only once seriously surrenders unto me and saying, my dear Lord, from this day I am yours, and prays to me from courage, I shall immediately award that courage to that person, and he will always remain safe from that time. So here Krishna is pointing out, just once we have to sincerely turn to Krishna and see the result. Krishna is saying, I'll personally take care of you. I will give you the courage. I will always remain with you, right? In comparison to the demigods, then then the result is temporary. So that comes now in the later verses. So we'll read that. So here again the same verse is there in Chaitanya Charitamrita. Akama sarvakama va moksha kama udarili. Same verse Krishna's Kaviraj Goswami is quoting, right? The same verse we are discussing here. Then okay, here. Let's see. Yes. So here says Anya Kami Yadi Kare Krishnera Bhajan. So Anya Kami, if they have some desire other than desire to serve Krishna, they have some desire for material enjoyment. Yadi Kare Krishnera Bhajan. Still, if they worship Krishna, then what happens? Na magite Krishna tare dena swacharana. Right? So if those who have desire for material enjoyment or merging into the existence of the Absolute, so either Sarva Kama or Moksha Kama, if they engage in Lord's transcendental loving service, they will immediately attain shelter of Krishna's lotus feet, although they did not ask for it. Krishna is therefore very merciful. So even with material desire, if you turn to Krishna, what does Krishna do? He'll actually give you the shelter of his lotus feet, even though that person had material desire. And this is how merciful Krishna is. Right? So here, Krishna kahe, ama bhaje mage vishaya sukha. So Krishna is saying, Ame bhaje. So they are worshipping me. Mage vishaya sukha. They are asking for what? Material enjoyment. Amrita chari visha mange. A bada murkha. Actually, he is leaving Amrita and he's actually asking for what? Poison. Visha. A bada murkha. Such a foolish person. He's come to me, but he's asking for poison while I can give him nectar. A bada murkha. Such a foolish person. But then this is Krishna saying, but I, Vigya e murkha vishaya kena diva. Since I am very intelligent, why should I actually fulfill that foolish desire of that person? Instead, swa charnamrita diya vishaya bhulaiba. I will give him my charnamrita, my nectar of the shelter of my lotus feet, and vishaya bhuliba. I will actually make him forget his material enjoyment. So if you turn to Krishna, even with material desire, Krishna is actually making a point. This person is so foolish. He is actually asking for poison. I'm willing to give him nectar. He's asking for poison. But I am not foolish. I am not foolish. I will actually give him the shelter. I'll give him nectar and I'll make him forget his illusory material enjoyment. Okay, and this is actually another verse from Bhagavatam 5th canto 19:27. Whenever Krishna is requested to fulfill one's desire, he undoubtedly does so, but he does not award anything which, after being enjoyed, will cause one to petition him again and again and to fulfill further desire. So Krishna will fulfill your desire, but he will do it in such a way that after you get it, then you will no longer have the desire to actually ask it again. When one has other desires but engages in Lord's service, Krishna forcibly gives one shelter at his lotus feet, where one will forget all other desires. All these verses are same, Kama lagi Krishna bhaje, paya Krishna rase, kama chari dasa hoite haya abhilashe. When someone engages in Krishna's devotion service for satisfaction of the senses, and instead acquires a taste for serving Krishna, he gives up his material desires and willingly offers himself as an eternal servant of Krishna. Okay, and then this is the example of Dhruva. So Prabhupada often quotes this last line of this verse, Swamin Krithartosmi Varam na yache. So when Dhruva, so Dhruva is perfect example here, right? So Dhruva Maharaj, what was his situation? He approached the Lord for material desires. He wanted a kingdom greater than his grandfather, actually greater than Brahma, right? So that was Dhruva's desire. But he worshipped the Supreme Personality of Godhead, right? But then when Krishna actually fulfilled the desire, and he actually appeared in front of Dhruva, then after he appeared, then he actually told Dhruva, I'm pleased with all your austerities, and then I will actually give you a rule of like, he actually tells that, I will give you the highest planet of Dhruva Lok, and then there you can rule, that is even greater than this earth planet. And you can actually even rule here on this earth planet, like not only that higher Dhruva Lok where you can rule, but even now where your father is ruling, you will rule that place for 36,000 years. And then your brother Uttama, your stepbrother, because of whom you will actually insult it, he will die in the future while hunting. And his mother will also be devoured by a forest fire while searching for him. And after you live 36,000 years here on the earth, then you can actually be promoted through. And what was Dhruva Maharaj's reaction after this? So he approached the Lord with material desires, and the Lord came and said like, okay, very nice. Your desire, I will fulfill it. Not only here, earth planet ruled 36,000, after that one separate planet just for you. How merciful the Lord is. But what was Dhruva's reaction after that whole thing? This is one place in the Bhagavatam where you read that, after Vishnu comes, after the entire sacrifice, after entire austerity, after Vishnu comes, then after Vishnu leaves, Dhruva is feeling so regretful in his heart. He was not at all pleased. He said, Nati Pritaha. He was not at all pleased. And why was he actually in this place? So when Sukadeva Goswami is narrating this, when he actually tells Dhruva's pastime and says like, oh, Dhruva is not pleased, immediately Vidura stops Maitreya Rishi. He said like, how is it possible? The Supreme Personality of Godhead came in front of him. And it is so rare that in one lifetime, within a matter of like 6 months, someone can actually obtain Lord. So rare. But even after obtaining the darshan of the Lord, he is displeased. How is that possible? Right? Immediately Vidura stops and asks about Dhruva's displeasure. Right? And then Maitreya Rishi actually makes the point that Dhruva was feeling like so embarrassed that what did I ask? I have asked for like broken pieces of glass when I actually can get the real treasure, And then Dhruva, remembering his past aspiration, he felt totally unqualified to accept liberation. Hence, with intense shame, regret, humility, and disgust, he spoke to himself. And then we have a section where Dhruva himself is lamenting. And he's thinking that I attained the rarest. Like who can actually attain the Lord within 6 months? I attained the rarest thing, but I have fallen from my position because I have approached the Lord with material desire. I desire perishable things. I am so manda bhagya. I am so unfortunate. Right? The Maya has influenced me. I have praised for useless things. Right? So in that way, Dhruva actually lamented, and that lamentation or the regret was actually purification, that after that he never desired for material perfection. Right? So this is how, even if you have material desires, you approach the Lord, this is how the Lord actually deals with those material desires. Okay. So let's continue. So Prabhupada in the purport, he's actually in text 10 of purport, he's actually making the point. Okay, so before we continue, can you think of examples of personalities who have approached the demigod, but because they were sincere in their approach to the demigod actually promoted them to worship of Krishna. They worshipped demigod, but it wasn't so much to fulfill their material desire. It was just, sometimes it was, but there was some sincerity because of which the demigod actually promoted them to worship of Krishna. So one story in Chaitanya Charitamrita is that of Keshav Kashmiri, right? He was a devotee of Saraswati, right? But by the mercy of Saraswati, she actually came and said, the person you're talking to, he is actually my Lord. So you should actually take shelter of him. Right? And then also the story of the Chandidas, I think I mentioned that before, right? How his brother was a devotee of Durga and how he had such a big no, he was a devotee of Durga. And no, which way? How did it go?
The brother was a devotee of Durga.
So basically, what happens is actually the brother is a devotee of Krishna. Brother is a devotee of Krishna, if I get this right. This person has such a big garden of flowers, and he was a worshipper of Durga, and he never gave any flower to actually worship of Krishna. And once his brother, if I get this right, maybe I'm confusing, but let's see the whole flow. So once he offered a flower to Krishna in his mind from the garden of Chandidas. And then when Chandidas he just offered in his mind, took that flower and offered it to Durga. Durga actually appeared in front of him. And he said, I worshipped you for so long, never you came in front of me, but now, today you have come. How come? And then she actually reveals that because this flower was offered to Krishna by your brother, and when I received the Mahaprasadam, that pleased me so much that I have come. And then she actually says, you should actually take shelter of Krishna. And after that, Chandidas actually became a devotee of Krishna, and he composed beautiful songs that Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu used to read these bhajans of Chandidas and relish that highest ecstasy. So another example. Okay. So, so if you see so let me make some points from Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur. He actually makes a point. So he actually says that, actually Sridhar Swami makes a point that akama refers to a pure devotee, when Jiva Goswami makes a point that akama means no desire, that actually refers to person whose only happiness is the happiness of Krishna. Persons whose only happiness is the happiness of Krishna. So Prabhupada in the purport also, he quotes this verse that Jiva Goswami is explaining desirelessness as bhajaniya parama purusha sukha matra swa sukhatva. Right? So this should be our mood, that one should feel happy only by experiencing the happiness of the Supreme God. Right? Our happiness, if we can somehow or other please Krishna, then that is the happy situation for me. Right? So that is Jiva Goswami's point. Right? And then there's another interesting point that it actually says, see, kama means to destroy our distress and to fulfill our desire, to give us happiness. Right? So if you see kama, to destroy our distress and to give us happiness. So in relationship to this point as kama, Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur is actually making the point that actually moksha kami is actually a bigger kami than actually even sarva kami. See, one may sarva kami means one who is actually desiring material objects. So one may say his consciousness is actually much lower than those who are actually desiring to merge into Brahman. But in this verse, Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur is saying, the one who is moksha kami, his desire is so much more stronger, and hence he has actually attained liberation, that impersonal liberation. Whereas a sarva kami is actually lower in that position. So moksha kami's desire is actually much bigger than the desire of a sarva kami, and hence the order is akama, sarva kama, and then moksha kami. Okay. In the purport, Prabhupada actually, he makes a point that even those who are actually sarva kami, right, the demigod, who worship demigod, how are their benedictions fulfilled? Only when it is sanctioned by Krishna. So even if someone is worshipping the demigods for material benefit, their desires are only fulfilled when Krishna actually gives the sanction. Right? So that's the first point. Then second point, even those who are actually worshipping the impersonal Brahmajyoti, moksha kami, who are they worshipping? They are actually worshipping just the bodily effulgence of Krishna himself. So again, it is actually only Krishna, when he actually sanctions or blesses them, they can actually fulfill their moksha kami. So in both cases, whether it's Sarvakami or Mokshakami, without Krishna's hand, they cannot actually attain success. Okay, and then further Prabhupada actually gives the example of Arjun as a kami, that his satisfaction of the Lord was at the cost of own satisfaction, right? So initially, Arjun was actually thinking that, oh, so many reasons why I should not fight, right? But later on, then he understood that my satisfaction is actually in the satisfaction of Krishna. So Krishna wants this war to happen. If I actually fight, then I will be satisfied, right? So that is the perfect state of perfect living entity. Okay, now coming to this word Tivra. Tivra means like an unmixed sun ray. So when you have a cloudy day, then the sun rays are not so strong. But if it's just like cloudless day, then the sun is actually very strong. Very strong. So Tivra actually refers to an unmixed sun ray. It is very forceful. That means what? That actually it is free from the mixture of karma, gyan, right? Anya bhilasita sunyam, jnana karmadi anavritam. So that devotional service that is free from the covering of karma and jnana. That kind of devotional service is actually pure, unmotivated, tivra devotional service. Right? So why is that word tivra used in this verse? That actually says even if you have material desire, you take the devotional service to Krishna. But how should you worship Krishna? You should worship it with intensity. With that great force, one should actually worship Krishna. Because with that force of worshipping Krishna, then all our material desires are mokshakami, everything will go away and we will attain the lotus feet of Krishna. Okay, now text number 11. So we'll do 2 more verses and we'll just take some time for reflections or questions. So text 11.
Etavan eva yajatam iha nishreyasa sodayaha bhagavat yachalo bhavo yad bhagavata sangataha.
Hare Krishna. All the different kinds of worshippers of multi-demigods can attain the highest perfectional benediction, which is spontaneous attraction, unflinchingly fixed upon the Supreme Personality of Godhead, only by the association of the pure devotee of the God.
So what is the point here? Etavan eva yajatam. So all these different kinds of demigod worshippers, right? Iha nishreyasya udaya. How will they attain the highest perfection? How will they, nishreyasya means highest perfection. How will they actually attain the highest perfection? Bhagavati achalo bhavo, right? Which is the highest perfection? Highest perfection, unflinching, spontaneous attraction to Krishna. They can attain that highest perfection only when Bhagavata Sangataha. Bhagavata Sangataha, only when they actually attain the association of pure devotees, right? Bhagavata Sangataha. So the point here is, like, so if even those who actually worship demigods, right, after their desires are fulfilled, what have they achieved? They worship demigod. Let's say a demigod came and actually blessed them with some material desire. What have they fulfilled? Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur is actually making the point. Even when their desires are fulfilled, what they have achieved is nothing. Why? It is because that devotional, that worship of the demigod is not a stepping stone to come to devotional service. It's not that you worship the demigod, you get the result, now you're closer to the highest perfection of attaining the shelter of the lotus feet of Krishna. No. So your entire worship of a demigod is not even bringing you one step closer to Krishna. It is actually useless that way. So the whole point is you can attain perfection only when you associate with the devotee of Krishna. Whether it's that demigod worshipper or a materialist or any kind of person, the only perfection is when you actually attain the association of a devotee. So, okay, so worshipping of demigod will actually attain a highest good if there's an attitude of service to the Lord actually arises in the core of that person. Otherwise, even that demigod worship, it is actually useless. There's no value to it. Normally we consider, like, practically when you see, okay, someone is worshipping demigod, we consider that at least he's doing that, better than a karmi, like a materialist. But actually in this purport, Prabhupada is actually saying, even that worship of demigod or the materials, what is the difference? They're worshipping demigod, but that's not going to bring them even one step closer to Krishna. So it is like because as soon as you say, oh yeah, he goes to temple every day, he does this puja, that puja, very releaseful. But actually here this verse is saying that even that is of no benefit.
But Prabhuji, we read in 7th chapter that even they worship demigod, Krishna fulfills that. We read one sloka, right, Prabhuji? In 7th chapter.
Bhagavad Gita.
Yeah, Bhagavad Gita. Even they worship demigod, Krishna bless them. Krishna
gives the strength to them.
I will find the verse.
Actually, in that verse it says Avidhi Purvakam. Those who are worshipping the demigods, they are actually doing Avidhi Purvakam. They are wrongly worshipping the demigods. Anyway, I'll come to your point. Is Krishna really saying that by worshipping the demigod, you're coming closer to me? No.
No,
You're coming to me indirectly. That's what he says. Right?
Worshipping.
See, I'll show you that you're talking of chapter 7, right? Yeah. So this point is actually very important. I'll just pull up Bhagavad Gita chapter 7. You can just see that. Chapter 7 and then chapter 9, there is also a similar theme. But let's just see chapter 7. Okay. Share my screen.
the 20 verse also, I think, 20 text.
Yeah. Yes. So let's see here. So yeah, text number 20 here. So this is a verse that Prabhupada quoted. Kamaste se rita jnana prapadyante anya devata. So first thing what Krishna is saying, anya devata, who do worship all the demigods? Kamaste se rita jnana, when their knowledge is actually stolen by illusion, by maya. They are deprived of the knowledge, then full of kama, right? They actually worship anya devata. Tam tam niyamam astaya prakritya niyatasvaya. How do they worship demigod? They follow the particular rules and regulations. Oh, this demigod worship, you have to worship this way, and on this tithi you do this. So they follow the rules and regulations. Okay. Then further, what they say, yo yam yam tanum bhakta shraddhaya architam ichchati tasya chalam shraddham tam eva vidaryam aham. I am in everyone's heart as a super soul. As soon as one desires to worship some demigod, I make his faith steady so that he can devote himself to that particular deity. So even those who are actually worshipping the demigod, Krishna is saying, okay, I will give you that faith that you worship that demigod. Okay. So it's nothing talking of like, pleasing Krishna or anything, but he's just saying, okay, I'll give you the faith by which you can worship. Okay. Then sa taya shraddhaya yuktas tasya ardhanam ihate labate cha tata kaman maeva vihitan. Endowed with such a faith, he endeavors to worship a particular demigod and obtains his desire. But in actuality, these benefits are bestowed by me alone. So here is clearly saying that, even though they are worshipping a demigod and their desire fulfilled, who is the one who is sanctioning? It is I who is actually giving the result. Right? Then antavantu phalam tesham yatad bhavati alpamedasam. Again here, alpamedasam. The men are of small intelligence. Why? Because the fruits of the demigods are limited and temporary. Those who worship Devan Devo Yejo Yanti, those who worship demigods go to the planet of demigods, but my devotees, they reach my supreme planet. Right? So that's it. So that's the section. So where is it actually saying that demigod worship is actually bringing one closer to Krishna? Nowhere.
Yeah.
Right?
Prabhuji,
The only thing that Krishna is saying that I make his face steady so that he can actually devote himself to that particular deity. Right? So the only difference, and Prabhupada points this in the purport, the only difference between a materialist and a person who's actually worshipping the demigod is it is in this purport actually.
But Prabhuji, we were just discussing the examples that how demigods themselves like to give you bhakti of Krishna. For example, you gave the example of Keshav Kashmiri, right? And that he was a worshipper of Saraswati, and then the Saraswati said, "Oh, he is my god, my master," right?
Okay, so 1 minute. So I'll just finish my point and I'll come to your point. So here, what is the difference between a demigod and a materialist? Prabhupada says the only advantage that the demigod have, he actually becomes convinced in the strength of the Vedas. Because he has done worship the demigod with the following the rules and regulations which are there in the Vedas, right? So that way, at least some faith in the Vedas come. And then from there, he can actually go beyond and understand what is the essence of the Vedas. And finally, he comes to Krishna. Right? So Prabhupada makes this point that even those who actually worship the demigods, when there's like, let's say, Karma Kanda, Yagya, even there, one of the aspects of that worship, of that Yagya, is to establish Vishnu. Because a true priest also knows that we are worshipping a particular demigod, but unless there is sanction of Vishnu, we won't get the result. So the priest who actually knows how to do Karma Kanda, they may worship Ganesh or other demigods, but they will have Vishnu there because they know that only by Vishnu's sanction, anything can be obtained. So the only difference between demigod worshippers and the materialists is that in demigod worshippers, they may develop their faith in the Shastra. And if they actually go beyond to find out the essence of Shastra, then they may come to devotional service. That is also a may, right? That is also a may, right? The only point is, in this verse is actually saying demigod worshipper or materialist, they can attain the highest perfection only when they come in contact with the devotee of Krishna. Maybe demigod worshipper has a greater chance of coming in contact with the devotee because they are used to going to temples. That may be the only thing. But that is also a big may. Okay. So now coming to other Vijaya Mata's point that, there in Chandida's example, how the demigod led them to Krishna. Actually, there is the mercy of a devotee of Krishna, because the devotee had offered the flower to Krishna. That's why the demigod actually showed the mercy. And also, what is the intention of worshipping a demigod? Actually, here we are discussing the section where they approach demigod to fulfill their material desire. If that is only their motivation, their intention of worshipping, then it is completely karma kanda. Right? That is completely like a materialist, because their only intention is, I want to worship demigod so that I can get good house, good prosperity, long life, and so on. So that is what is being rejected. So for devotees of Krishna, we respect demigods, right? We respect all. Actually, one of the items of devotional service, as explained in Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, is even devotees should actually respect demigods, right? We respect every living entity. But our worship is only to Krishna. We accept that demigods are empowered by Krishna to actually manage some material aspect, but our worship is only to Krishna. Right? Even there is a story of the Sanatana Goswami, the touchstone story, right? Where the person goes to Lord Shiva, he is a Shiva Bhakta, and he asks, please give me the best benediction. I don't know what to ask. And then Lord Shiva says, okay, if you want the best, then go to that Sanatana Goswami. He has a touchstone. That's the best. He'll give you that touchstone. And he went and he saw the touchstone was in the garbage. And he took the touchstone and was like, oh yes, I got the touchstone. They realized, why would that person keep touchstone in the garbage? And comes back to Sanatana Goswami and say, like, why have you kept this in garbage? Say, first throw it in Yamuna, then I'll come and tell you. Then I'll tell you. And then after this person throws it and comes back, then he gives the holy name. So that also we see how Lord Shiva is actually bringing that person to Krishna. But again, it depends on the intention of the person approaching the personality. Even in 4th canto, we'll see how Lord Shiva recites the Rudra Gita, right? Where he's actually giving Bhagavad Gita knowledge to the Prachetas. Why? Because their desire was not so much of just getting material opulence, right? So the difference between approaching a demigod with this desire of fulfilling material desire, or just approaching a demigod just out of innocence, not knowing, what is what. So it depends on the intention, and also it depends on what is the sukriti that person has. The person does not have sukriti, then how will you take bhakti? So
I just want to also add that the demigods themselves are devotees of the Lord, right?
but sakam devotees. It depends on the demigod also. Like Brahma in our case is a devotee of Krishna. He's a pure devotee. Lord Shiva is a pure devotee, right? But other demigods, Indra, is he a devotee? Yes, he's a devotee in the sense that he accepts Krishna as Vishnu as the supreme. But his devotion is sakam. It is full of, again, we're discussing calm, right? Full of calm because he is more concerned with his own kingdom than devotion to Krishna. When there's any problem to his heavenly kingdom, then he says, "Oh Vishnu, where are you? Please give me the weapon to kill Vritasura." And then so much big yajna and sacrifices. So even the demigods are actually that way, sakam devotees. Right? Sakam devotees. And further,
Sorry.
Go ahead.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. You were mentioning that Krishna is so merciful, even though and people are, not so intelligent, and they pray for material desires. He says, "Oh, I am intelligent. Let me give them the mercy." Does it come into this picture also, Prabhuji? Just
yeah, if they worship Krishna, then for sure, right? So, what is your question, Mati? So the
question is, you mentioned, they worship Krishna for material benefits. Okay, I'm sorry, I'm confused. Okay.
They worship Krishna with material benefits, and Krishna says, that person is foolish. He's asking for poison. But I am not foolish. I will give him nectar. I am so merciful. Right? So, this is the conclusion. Either case, you have full of desires, you have no desires, you have a desire for liberation, just engage in devotion to Krishna. Just come to Krishna. Just come to Krishna. That is the whole point of Bhagavatam. No need to worship any demigods. No need to just come to Krishna. That is the whole point. Right? And then further in this verse is saying, how will that mercy, that highest perfection, the highest benediction come? When we actually come in Bhagavata Sangata, when we come in association of devotees of Krishna. Okay, so Prabhupada in this purport, if you please read the purport, Prabhupada actually makes the point. He compares that, he makes the point that even demigods, they are conditioned by the three modes of material nature. So a material advancement, what we say material advancement here, or demigod worship, they are both illusory. Prabhupada uses the word phantasmagoria. Both of them are illusory. Even demigod worship versus advancing on the material side, because both of them do not solve the real problems of life. Then Prabhupada also in this purport talks about how people want to go to Chandraloka. They want to go to moon. And also in between, there was this whole thing that you can buy property on moon. Like people are trying to go to moon and say, you can go there and you can buy a property there. And Prabhupada talks about that and like, how foolish is their, their whole, all these propaganda. It's like you cannot even go stay on the moon, even if you're going to the moon. Prabhupada said different things about them going to the moon. But even if you go to the moon, you cannot stay there. You don't have the pious credits to stay there. And even if you stay there, people don't want to stay. They just want to go and then they want to come back to this earth. That's all like simply foolishness. Right? Okay. Right. And then finally, Prabhupada says, so who is a Bhagavata Sangataha? Who is a Bhagavataha? The pure devotee of Krishna? Prabhupada says that pure devotee of Krishna is one who shows the way. So how Chaitanya Charan Prabhu actually says, a guru is who? One who knows the way, one who goes the way, and one who shows the way. Right? One who knows the way, that means he has learned it from someone else who is a guru, who knows the way. Then he actually goes the way. He himself practices that, and then he shows the way. He shows it to others, right? So Prabhupada concludes by saying a pure devotee is one who can actually show one the right way of progressive life. Okay. Now, text number 12.
Jnanam yada apratinivritta gunormi chakram atma prasada utayatra guneshva sangaha kaivalya samatapatastvatak bhakti yogaha ko nirvrito harikata suratim na kuryat.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. Transcendental knowledge in relation with the Supreme Lord Hari is knowledge resulting in the complete suspension of the waves and whirlpools of the material modes. Such knowledge is self-satisfying due to its being free from material attachment and being transcendental. It is approved by authorities who could fail to be attracted. Hare Krishna.
So here actually, why is this verse after the, like, what is the connection between this and the previous verse? In previous verse, he actually said, okay, so text number 10, one should do a Tibra Bhakti Yoga. Then how can one do Tibra Bhakti Yoga? One actually should do Bhagavad Sangataha, right? So one should actually take association of devotees. Then in this verse, like the point is actually made that if someone has always worshipped some demigod, for the whole life, how will he actually develop attachment to Krishna? Let's say someone is a worshipper of Ganesh. Whole life he's worshipped Ganesh. Is it okay for that person that now he gets the knowledge and then he changes to worship of Krishna? Will the demigod not be offended? So that point is actually answered here. Right? That point is answered here. So Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur is saying, let's say someone has worshipped a devata for one's whole life. Isn't it improper for the worshipper to take shelter of another deity, Krishna, at the end? Right? So in relationship to that, this verse is actually answering. That is actually making the point that even those who are jnanis, aspiring for the impersonal Brahma Jyoti, they actually get attracted to the message of Harikatha. Right? They get attracted. And what is the example of jnanis getting attracted to Harikatha? And what is the...
4 Kumaras.
What's that, Mati?
Kumaras, 4 Brahma Kumaras.
Yeah, 4 Kumaras, yeah. Okay, and?
Shukadeva Goswami.
Shukadeva Goswami, right? So they were attracted. Even though they were at the impersonal realization, they were attracted to Harikatha. Now, if we consider demigod worshippers, they are much lower in the ladder. Actually, the ladder does not even start at that point. Karma Kanda means they are not even on the yoga ladder. Yeah, like ladder starts with what? Sakam Karma Yoga, Nishkam Karma Yoga, Jnana Yoga, Dhyana Yoga, Bhakti Yoga. Karma Kanda is not yet on the ladder. So that's the whole point of the previous verse, that Karma Kanda is also worship of demigods, is still material. So what is the difference between material advancement and worship of demigods, right? So if you see that even those who are jnani, they are attracted to Harikatha. So what to talk of demigod worshippers? They are much lower in the yoga ladder. Even they will get attracted to Harikatha. So when one actually comes in contact with a devotee, then he gets jnana. So this verse starts with jnanam yad. So when he actually gets that jnana, then what happens? The first thing, gu normi. Gu normi means one is completely withdrawn from the ways of gunas. Right? So we are all under the influence of the 3 modes of material gunas. And the demigods, they themselves are under the influence of 3 modes. But when one receives that jnana from a devotee, then what happens? He actually completely withdraws. He's above the 3 modes of material nature. Then second, what is the point? Atma prasada. Atma prasada means that knowledge itself is self-satisfying. He receives the knowledge and he understands that this is the highest, right? Atma prasada. Then the third word is guneshu asanga. That means he becomes free from all kinds of attachment. Then transcendental, kaivalya. Kaivalya samata. This is actually transcendental because it is approved by other transcendentalists. And this will actually lead to bhakti yoga. So the last line say, ko nivritu harikatasu ratim na kuryat. So who will not be attracted to this Harikatha. Right? If someone comes in contact with the devotee and hears this Harikatha, the Harikatha is already raising his consciousness above the three modes of material nature and giving him so much satisfaction in his heart. And it is actually transcendental to all these worship of the demigods, then who will not be attracted to the message of Harikatha? Even a person who has worshipped a demigod for his whole life. You know? And this knowledge is so purifying that and so attractive that even a person who's worshipped a demigod, he'll come and he'll fall in love with Krishna, and then he'll understand that all those demigods are just parts or servants of Krishna. So, okay, so connection is okay. So who could fail to be attracted to this knowledge which is given by Bhagavad Sangataha? Right? So Prabhupada in the purport, he actually talks about Bhagavad Gita 10.9. What is Bhagavad Gita 10.9?
Chitta Madgata Prana, Bodhayanta Parasparam, Kathayantas, Dushyanta Paramanticha.
So basically Prabhupada is quoting this verse, and he actually makes the point that the Gyan is so wonderful that what do devotees experience? Tushyanti cha ramanti cha. They experience so much bliss in actually talking about this knowledge, discussing this knowledge. And Prabhupada says not only pure devotees, even those who are sadhana avastha, those who are actually in the beginning stages of devotional service, even they can actually experience this transcendental bliss of Harikatha when they do it properly under the guidance of a bona fide spiritual master. Right? Okay. And then further Prabhupada goes ahead and makes the point that how Bhakti Yoga is Kaivalya. Right? What does Kaivalya mean? Kaivalya means that, okay, only that part, right? Kaivalya. Right? So how is Bhakti Yoga Kaivalya? Because Prabhupada says that is the only way by which one can actually understand Krishna. Right? So Bhakti Yoga is transcendental, Narayan is transcendental, so that way a path of reaching Narayan, which is actually Bhakti Yoga, that is also transcendental. So Kaivalya Pantha, right? Pantha means path, right? Attainment of God. So again, Prabhupada elaborates like how all the knowledge. So by engage, how does devotional service, the Kaivalya Pantha start? By Shravana. And what is the consequence of hearing this knowledge? Then we become detached from mundane topics. We become so detached that we don't even care for our own body. And then one is not agitated by the waves of the gunas. And then we get Atma Prasada. We get complete satisfaction. Okay. So, Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur is also pointing out that how this verse, Bhakti, is actually proving the superiority of Bhakti to Karma, Jnana, Yoga, and worship of demigods. How is that? Because it's already saying that Gun Normi, one is actually going to raise oneself above the three modes of material nature. It is actually transcendental. It is Atma Prasada. So, by actually talking of these different qualities, it is actually proving that Bhakti is higher than Karma, Jnana, Yoga, and also worship of the demigods. So, among all these five, that knowledge which is actually received from Bhagavad Sangata is actually the highest, and hence Bhakti is the highest. It is the Kaivalya path. Okay, so let's quickly see that. This is okay, the first section. It's all about like demigod worship, comparing demigod worship to worship of devotional service. And even if someone has material desires, then one should just approach Krishna. And how one worships Krishna? By approaching Bhagavad Sangataha. And then how can one say that that is going to be the perfection? If I'm worshipping demigod whole life, it's okay for me to change. And then the point is, man, this jnana is so purifying. And once you actually receive this jnana from a pure devotee, then you'll get Atma Prasada. You'll fall in love with Krishna finally. And then you understand demigods are just parts of Krishna. I don't need to worship Krishna. I respect all demigods, but my heart is to Krishna. That is the result of receiving that jnana from the pure devotees of Lord. Okay. So let's see, we'll just take a break here. Are there any comments, questions, realizations? Maybe you can have some, like maybe 3 points that you heard today. You just want to repeat and just go through the points.
Prabhuji, in the purport of text 9, Prabhupada is writing, pure devotional service means service to the Lord without any tinge of material desires. So I got that one. And in the purport of text 10, that was 9, sorry. And Prabhupada is giving the examples of gopis. They loved Krishna without anything in return. So, and that was the perfect example of a kama spirit.
So that Gopi example is in relationship with how Jiva Goswami says that akama means they find happiness in the happiness of Krishna. You know, another famous story that is there is how Krishna once he had a headache, right? Krishna had a headache once, and then Narad Muni came and he asked, what happened? Krishna said, I have this very bad headache, and if I don't get the cure for this, then I will not survive today. And then Narad Muni saying, okay, what is the cure? What is the cure? I will get it for you. And then Krishna says, get me the dust from the feet of the devotees of Krishna. And Narad Muni said, oh, there are so many devotees, no problem. I will go and get it. And then Narad Muni goes to the queens of Krishna in Dwarka, and then Rukmini Devi actually, she says, what? It is a very serious condition that Krishna has a headache. But dust off my feet? How can I actually give that? You know, the Krishna is my worshipper Lord. How can I give my dust? And then Narad Muni went to all the queens, and everyone said, no. How can we give? And then Narad Muni was like, okay, who will give the dust on the feet? And when you go to gopis, we went to approach Radharani, and he saw Radharani there, and she asked, and Radha said, actually, I don't know about being a devotee of Krishna, but if the dust from my feet is actually going to work, please take it. Please take it. And then Narad Muni says, oh, maybe they don't know the result of giving the dust from their feet. And Narad Muni asked, do you know what will happen if we actually give the dust on feet to put on Krishna? And Gopi says, yeah, we know. We'll suffer in hell eternally. But if our suffering in hell eternally is going to give happiness to Krishna, then that is our happiness. So that is that akama. Whatever Krishna, it gives happiness, even if I have to suffer, it does not matter. I'll go to hell eternally, then I will still, it's giving happiness to Krishna, then that is my perfection. So that's a akama spirit.
Prabhuji, I have a question, and if this question is off topic, we can discuss it later. But Prabhuji, we accept everything in relation to Krishna. For example, we wear Tulsi Kanti, right? Tulsi Maharani is such a great devotee of Krishna. So Prabhuji, some of you are wearing a locket in the Tulsi Kanti. I was trying to understand what that is.
I think that is some of them have the Narsimha Kavacha. They just wear that along with Tulsi.
So what's the significance of that, Prabhuji? And so protection?
Yeah,
devotional service.
Now we pray to Lord Narsimha there, right, for protection. So some devotees wear that Narsimha Kavacha. It has some mantras, special mantras of protection. So they prefer to wear that. You know, but it's actually the main thing is Tulsi Mala has to be there. That is the most important. And then yeah. So
Prabhuji, you get this Narsimha Kavacha from the Mayapur temple, or
you can ask the other devotees and like that.
Okay, Prabhuji. Thank you so much.
Okay, so let's see any other reflections up to this point.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. In the text 11, a great point about, how even though the demigod worshippers, they won't get one step closer to Krishna, but only with the mercy of the pure devotee. And I'm also thinking, a lot of people, when they take a book from us, like when from Bhagavad Gita or Bhagavatam, they become pure devotees, even though I'm not. But I was thinking, it is because we were just the messengers, but they're really associating with the Prabhupada in these verses, and that's why they get the mercy. I think that's how they take up the devotional service.
Yeah.
How is this possible? It's reading a book they will take up to, pure devotion service. And also I like the point, how you referred Chaitanya Charitamrita, and, Krishna says, even though they're not intelligent, I'm intelligent. I'll take even the desire out of their mind, so they will be in pure service to me. So First appearance.
Thank you, Mate, thank you. So the first point, actually, these books are actually, they are how we say Tadvag Visargo Janataga Visargo. It's not like an ordinary book. It is not like ink on an ordinary book. These are actually spiritual sound vibrations. Anyone who comes in contact with these books, he's actually directly associating with Srila Prabhupada. And he receives that mercy of Srila Prabhupada. And hence that Bhagavad Sangataha is actually there in all of Prabhupada's books. So, very nice. Thank you. Anyone else?
I just had I just had a question about Anyabhilashita Shunyam, how unless it's pure unmotivated devotional service, it won't give full satisfaction of the heart. And at the same time, I hear it saying like, and Tivrena means unmixed, right? But at the same time, it's saying like, even if you have material desires, you still do devotional service. So I'm just trying to understand these 2 points. Like, how can it be? Is that just the ideal and we're not there yet? Is that, and it will just purify us by just continuing in devotional service?
The point is like, even if you have material desires, if we are not Anya Abhilasha, approach Krishna. If you worship Krishna with Tivra, even with that motivation that, oh, Krishna, let me get a new house. Even if you're worshiping Krishna with Tivra, with that intensity, then Krishna will purify that desire. Right? So the Bhagavatam's point is, even if you have desires, just worship Krishna. Maybe initially that intention is not pure, like how Dhruva did. Dhruva is a perfect example, right? He did intense devotional service, right? How he is in what Narad Muni actually told him. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya, and this is how you practice. You're in Madhuban, and then 3 times you take bath, and then how he every month he was his intensity of doing that devotion was increasing under the guidance of Narad Muni. But was his intention completely pure? No, it wasn't pure. But still he engaged in that Tivra Bhakti. So there the Tivra Bhakti not necessarily would mean that Anya Abhilash, but there that Tivra Bhakti would mean that the intense practice of devotion, though the motivation is not completely pure, like Dhruva's case. But because he actually did it under the guidance of a Bhagavad Sangataha, then he actually got purified.
So the difference between that kind of devotee and, let's say, Indra, you mentioned Sakama devotee, is that maybe he's just holding, what is the difference between a devotee who's getting purified and a devotee who maybe just stay a Sakama? Can a devotee just say Sakama devotee? Or do they get purified?
Because the intention is not so pure. Like, so Indra, when he approaches Vishnu, it is just for like, oh, that is a demon who's taking away my kingdom. Can you help? It's nothing more than that. And that's why like they are always in the Sakama. That's why Indra, we read in Bhagavatam. Like of all personalities, we read about Indra, how he makes mistakes, and then how he actually again realizes, oh, I made a mistake. And again, he makes it. And, we keep reading of this. Because he's like so much attached to that heavenly, position, that his approach of Krishna is only that to maintain that. So that comes back to the same point that yes, they are coming in contact with Krishna, but they're so holding on to their material desire that Krishna is okay. Yeah, I want to purify you. I want to purify you, but you're holding it so, that's what you want. So, okay, that is some purification, but still, it will take a long time. Take a long time. So when Indra is approaching Krishna, yes, that is certainly benefit. Like, for him, like who else will he go to? But that is certainly benefit. But because he's holding on to that poison, then Krishna is also gradually purifying. That purification is there, but it's very gradual.
Thank you.
Okay, Divya.
Hare Krishna. Oh, sorry. Hare Krishna, Prabhuji.
Yeah.
Yeah, you mentioned that that is very nice. I mean, the demigod worship, but they have like desires are there. Some desires are there. There is not like a kama. But you said that the very good example. That's Dhruva Maharaj. He has first material desire, but then he got like Brahma, Dhruva Loka is there, but his intention then he's changed like when he saw like the Lord Vishnu, and his mind like changed the desire, right?
Yes. Yes, Dhruv is a perfect example of this. Thank
Yes, Hare Krishna.
you. Dhiren,
So I just heard this class in Mayapur, 12:24, and my Guru Maharaj was speaking that day on the same verse of like 2 to 7. So in that class, he mentioned this point that he has given like 7 to 8 verses speaking of demigod worship. So what does it necessarily mean? In every verse, he's saying you don't want this because Parikshit Maharaj, you have all the opulence that the demigods can give. He has best body, he is superhero, he is very powerful, he is amazing. He does not need it. So the speaker, the audience is not interested in any of these. But he's making the point that in every verse he's pointing out that these demigods cannot take you out from birth and old age and disease. That is a sublime, So that was very important because we have to see the audience and hear its moods, what is Parikshit saying, what is Sukadeva Goswami speaking. So that was a very important understanding this. He does not need any of this. He has super stri, he is the most beautiful wife in the world. He has the most amazing progeny, So
yeah.
I just wanted to bring that.
Yeah. So like, the whole flow of that Manishina and one who's not Manishina. So we all should become Manishinam and hence don't worship the demigods for all these opulences, right? And Parikshit is giving the best example where he had all these opulences, but he gave away everything and took shelter of the lotus feet of Krishna. Okay, so let's take a quick break, 3-4 minutes, and then we'll come back to the next section of this chapter. Okay. Thank you so much. Hare Krishna.
Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Krishna, Hare Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna. Krishna, please share. Go now. Krishna, Krishna, Hare
Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Okay, Hare Krishna, everyone. So let's continue. So the point about what Ratna Radhika was mentioning about like the difference between Dhruva and Indra. Like even Indra is approaching Krishna and even Dhruva has approached Krishna, both of them with material desires. Then what is the difference and how come one of them becomes a pure devotee and one of them is still holding on to his material desires? I was thinking like the main point there is how Dhruva, he received the mercy of a devotee of Krishna, Narad Muni. So when Narad Muni actually gave him the mantra, he is actually praying that Dhruva, yes, he'll get his kingdom, but he won't, he should get purified, he should become a pure devotee of Krishna. And because that Bhagavad Sangataha, Dhruva Maharaj got, but Indra actually doesn't have that direct Bhagavad Sangataha, that's why we see the difference, even though both of them approach Krishna. Right? Okay. Okay. So we continue with text number 13 now.
Shronaka Uvacha Ityabhivyaritam Raja Nishamya Bharatarshabaha Kim Anyat Prishtavan Bhuyo Vayasakim Rishim Kavim.
Hare Krishna translation, Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Shaunaka said, the son of Vyasadeva, Srila Sukadeva Goswami, was a highly learned sage and was able to describe things in a poetic manner. What did Maharaj Parikshit again inquire from him after hearing all that he had said? Hare Krishna.
As I mentioned, so this is the second section of the chapter where we see how Sonak Rishi is now inspiring Suta Goswami, because now he has heard that the main thing is actually that one should hear, chant, and remember Krishna. So Sukadeva Goswami's clear instruction to Parikshit Maharaj is you have 7 days, just spend the 7 days in hearing and chanting. So because that point is already clear, so now Shonak Rishi is actually asking Suta Goswami that yes, now they are going to hear and speak more. So what was the next topic, right? And then this verse actually says, Itya abhi vyahritam Rajan. All that was spoken, right? And Raja, the king was hearing Nishamya, and Bharata Shabha Maharaj Parikshit. Kim Anyat, what was the next thing that he Prishtavan, he inquired, right? And Vayasaki, you son of Vyasadeva. And how did Vyasadeva, who was actually Rishi and Kavi. So 2 qualities of Vyasadeva is given. He's Rishi and also Kavi. Rishi means he's well versed, and the Kavi means he's poetic. So Rishi is saying that you have explained that Vyasadeva, Sukadeva Goswami is a highly learned sage and was able to describe things in a poetic manner. What did Parikshit Maharaj inquire? Right? Prabhupada in the purport is actually talking of how a devotee is actually poetic. Right? So actually, you see, Prabhupada himself was actually such an expert poet. You know? And it is actually one of the 26 qualities of a Vaishnava. So I'll just share my screen quickly. So this is in Chaitanya Charitamrita, where it talks of, like here, Sarva Mahaguna. You can see my screen, right? Sarva Mahaguna Gana Vaishnava Sharire Krishna Bhakte Krishnera Guna Sakali Sanchare. A Vaishnava is one who has developed all good transcendental qualities. All good qualities of Krishna gradually develop in Krishna's devotees. Right? And why I'm telling this, because in the purport, Prabhupada actually he says how the pure devotee, he automatically gets all the godly qualities. And this verse here, Yasyasi Bhaktir Bhagavati Akinchana Sarvair Gunes Tatra Samasate Sura. Sarvair Guna, all the guna which are found even in demigods, that will come in a devotee. Harav Abhaktasya, but those who is not a devotee, Kuto Mahadguna, what good qualities he has? Manorathe Nasati Dhautu Bhai, he's just on the chariot of the mind. So what good qualities he has? But the devotee, he has Sarvair Guna, all good qualities. And then it says Saba Guna Hoya Vaishnava Lakshan. What is the Lakshan of a Vaishnava, symptom of a Vaishnava? Is this the good qualities? Saba Kaha Na Yaya Kari Dig Darshana. And they cannot be fully explained, but I will give you the importance. Unlimited qualities, but 26 qualities Krishna's Kaviraj Goswami lists in this verse. So Prabhupada actually, he lists that entire 26 qualities is basically from this verse here. So Kripalu is merciful, Akrita Droha, not defiant, Satyachara Sama, Nidosha, Vadanya, Mrudu, Suchi, Akinchana, Sarvopakara, Shanta, Krishneka Sharana, Akama, Aniha, Stira, Vichita Satsguna. So you see here, you can see word to word meaning and each one of the qualities. So 26 qualities. And if you see towards the last, it says Kavi, right? Kavi means a poet. Right? And then Daksha, expert, Moni, silent. So one of the 26 qualities of a Vaishnava is that he is a poet. So now here, when Sukadeva Goswami is actually referred to as a poet, then it's like Prabhupada is saying that how all the devotees, they have this quality of being poetic. So he has described the first three, like up to this point, he's actually described everything in such a beautiful, poetic way, right? So you continue speaking. What did Parikshit Maharaj ask next? Okay, text 14.
Etach Chushrushtam Vidvan Sutanur Hasibhashitam Katahari Kato Darka Satam Sadasi Dhruvam.
So one more point I didn't mention in the previous, like the last part of Purport Prabhupada says, the presentation of Srimad Bhagavatam by his recitation is the highest poetic contribution. The Srimad Bhagavatam itself is the highest poetic contribution. Right? So how can we understand this? You know, we have discussed this point before, that how Srimad Bhagavatam is giving us this knowledge. So how do Vedas give the knowledge? The way the Vedas give the knowledge is almost like a teacher telling a student, or a king telling one of the students, do this, don't do this, right? So Vedas teach by orders. How does Purana teaches? Just like a friend, you know, by telling stories and this, right? And then there is a Kavya. Kavya is like just like a lover, you know, like a sweet words of a lover. But Bhagavata is actually teaching through all three aspects. Right? It's actually teaching through the Vedic principle, through the blessings, and is also poetic. Right? And also, if you see in the 10th chapter of Bhagavad Gita, what does Krishna says? Gayatri Chandamsam Aham. Right? What is the best of all poetry? The Gayatri. And how did the Srimad Bhagavatam actually come? Actually, Brahma received this knowledge, and then it came as Krishna's flute, it came out as a Gayatri mantra, and the expansion of the Gayatri mantra is the Srimad Bhagavatam. So if you accept Gayatri mantra as the highest poetic, Krishna is saying in the 10th chapter, Gayatri as the best of all poetry. I am Gayatri. Right? So from that Gayatri, the entire Srimad Bhagavatam comes. So the entire Srimad Bhagavatam is actually said to be very poetic. Right? So we know how there are different meters, right? Like the first one. Janmasya asya yato vaya itara tarteshu abhigyasara. Then next verse, dharma projita kaitavatro. Then nigama kalpataru. All three are actually different meters. You know. Now Bhagavad Gita, it is normally just the anashtup, right? It just goes in the similar. Mostly it's the same, but then 2.7 has a slightly different meter. But in Bhagavatam, because it has all these variations of meters, it's actually said to be the most poetic book. So, okay, text 14.
Charya Prabhu, will you read?
Okay, we already read. Who's the translation? Yes. Go ahead, Mother.
Okay. O learned Sutta Goswami, please continue to explain such topics to us, because we are all eager to hear. Besides that, topics which result in the discussion of Lord Hari should certainly be discussed in the assembly of devotees.
So now they are saying Shushru Shatam, right? So certainly Sukadeva Goswami and Parikshit Maharaj, Parikshit must have asked more questions. And Shushru Shatam, we are actually very eager to hear, right? That is a qualification of the inquirer, the hearer, right? We've discussed this a few times in the first canto. What is the qualification of a hearer? He should always be inquisitive. He should always be eager to hear. So he's saying that Eta Shushrutam. So we are eager to hear. And then, O learned Sutta Goswami, showing that you are actually. So both he's saying that we are eager to hear, and Sutta Goswami, you are so learned. You are Vidwan, right? So you Arhasi Bhasitam. You continue to explain. Whatever you're saying, you continue to explain, right? And then it says Kata Hari Kato Darkaha. Right? So that it is very interesting. It doesn't just say Hari Katha, it says Hari Katha Udarkaha. That means that result in topics of the Lord. So Prabhupada elaborates on that point, that they are telling Sutta Goswami that you continue your narration of topics that may not even if they are not directly related to Krishna, but they actually lead to Krishna. You know, like someone may say the topics of creation, Brahma's creation, 4 Kumaras, Rudra. Well, is it directly Krishna Katha? Because it leads one to Krishna Katha, it is also Krishna Katha in that way. Right? So, and then it says Satam, Sadasi. In the assembly of devotees, Satam, one should actually dhruvam, certainly hear topics of Krishna and topics that lead to Krishna. Right? So Prabhupada in the purport, he actually elaborates on this point, and he says that even mundane topics, like someone may discuss like Mahabharata, right? And because Mahabharata leads to Bhagavad Gita, where Krishna is giving the most wonderful instructions to Arjun, hence even the entire Mahabharata is also said to be Krishna Katha. Right? So Prabhupada quotes how Rupa Goswami, he actually says, Nirbandhe Krishna Sambandhe Vyuktam Vairagyam Uchyate. Right? He makes the point that even mundane things, if they are dovetailed in the service of Krishna, then they should be accepted as transcendental. So Prabhupada says that how some people say, Mahabharata, that is not Krishna Katha. That cannot be accepted authority. But Prabhupada says, no, Mahabharata is also the fifth Veda. It's compiled by Vyasadeva himself, and because it leads one to Krishna Katha, hence it has to be accepted. And then sometimes people also say that Bhagavad Gita is actually should not be discussed within householders. Sometimes we have this experience. We go and give Bhagavad Gita and they say like, oh, my father told me not to keep Gita and Mahabharata at home because then it will create Kurukshetra. The war of Kurukshetra. But Prabhupada is pointing out, it is so silly, their argument, because what is Krishna's role there? He is married, he is a Grahastha. What is Arjun? Arjun is a Grahastha. So two Grahasthas, one way of speaking, and now you are saying, I am a Grahastha and I cannot accept this knowledge. How stupid is that, right? So Prabhupada talks about that. Okay, and then Prabhupada says how Bhagavad Gita is the high philosophy of the Vedas, but that is for beginners, and Srimad Bhagavatam is graduate and postgraduate study. And also how we read in the starting of the Bhagavatam, how we read about the history of the Pandavas, right? What was the first thing that started this entire scene of the Pandavas was about Draupadi, right? Draupadi and Ashwatthama. So it started with the history of the Pandavas. So because all those topics led to discussion of Krishna, they are all Harikatha. Okay, and Prabhupada concludes by saying that men have inclinations for studying history. Hence, they should all be taught to actually study the history of Mahabharata and Ramayana, by which they will actually come to Harikatha, discussing Harikatha. Yeah. So Mati said the households are always in war. That's why there should always be Bhagavad Gita and Srimad Bhagavatam going on. Right? That's the solution. Okay, so let's continue. Text 15.
Savai Bhagavato Raja Pandaveyo Maharataha Balakridana Kaikridan Krishna Kridam Ya Adade.
Hare Krishna. Maharaj Parikshit, the grandson of the Pandavas, was from this very childhood a great devotee of the Lord. Even while playing with the dolls, he used to worship Lord Krishna by imitating the worship of the family deity.
So basically now, they are actually glorifying that both Sukadev Goswami and Maharaj Parikshit are such extraordinary personalities. Right? So certainly, we discussed this point earlier also, right? There's a similar verse where it actually says, if both the speaker and hearer are such exalted personalities, then certainly the conversation between them has to be very glorious. Both of them are exalted devotees of Krishna. So certainly what they talk is going to be wonderful devotional katha, right? So that's the point that Sonak Rishi is actually saying. Savai Bhagavato Raja. So who is Raja Parikshit? He is Bhagavata. He is a great devotee of Krishna. And Pandaveya. Pandaveya, he is the grandson of who? The great Pandavas. Your close devotees. So, close devotees of Krishna, right? So, certainly, he is such a glorious personality. Even while playing with dolls, he used to worship Lord Krishna by imitating the worship of family deity. So they are glorifying how Maharaj Parikshit, even from his childhood, was actually such a great devotee of Krishna, such a great devotee. So, hence, what questions he was asked and what answers Sukadeva Goswami must have given, they are all actually must be spoken in the assembly of devotees. Hence, you please continue speaking. Right? So, Prabhupada in the purport, he actually refers to the 6th chapter of Bhagavad Gita. Let me share my screen. Right. So, in the 6th chapter, Krishna actually says, let's see, yeah, from here, right? Text 41. Prapya punya kritam lokan usita sasvita sama suchinam shrimatam gehe yogo bhrasto bijayate. That the unsuccessful yogi, Arjuna asked a question like, what if someone takes up the path, but he does not complete? What happens to them? Then Krishna says, the unsuccessful yogi, after many, many years of enjoyment, then is born into the family of righteous people or family of rich aristocracy. And then further he says, but if he has actually practiced yoga for a long time and then he falls, then he's born in the family of devotees. Right? Certainly such a birth is very rare. And when he takes such birth, what happens? He revives the divine consciousness of his previous life. Wherever he left off, he just continues, right? He makes further progress. And then such a person always stands above ritualistic principles of the scriptures. Right? So Prabhupada discusses this point. But then he says that, but Maharaj Parikshit, does he fall in this category? That he actually did bhakti a long time and then he couldn't complete and hence he's actually starting? No. Maharaj Parikshit is actually even beyond that, because even in the previous life, he was actually a pure devotee. Now, I have asked certain devotees that, who was Maharaj Parikshit in previous life? And that, it's like, at least I have not got an answer for that. I don't know if anyone here has some more information. But at least Prabhupada makes a point that even in previous life, he was a pure devotee of Krishna. Right? So the 6th chapter of Bhagavad Gita, where it actually talks about birth in a family of devotees, it wasn't so true of Maharaj Parikshit because he was more than that. He was a devotee from his previous life itself. Right? And then Prabhupada further says that how, while growing up, so this point is actually, our acharyas give slightly different points, that Jiva Goswami and Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, they actually said that Parikshit, he heard about the childhood pastimes of Krishna in Vrindavan. So we don't hear so much about how Parikshit is growing up, but here is saying that he actually went to Vrindavan and he heard Krishna's pastime, and therefore, while he was playing with dolls, he used to imitate Krishna's pastimes. So that is one point. But Sridhar Swami actually makes a point that Pandavas, they were devotees of Krishna, so they used to have nice worship of Krishna. So seeing that, then Parikshit Maharaj used to imitate that worship. So either imitating the worship or imitating the pastimes, in either case, that actually says how Maharaj Parikshit is such a glorious devotee of Krishna. And Prabhupada says, he gives his own example. He says, even I was born in the family of devotees. We know Prabhupada's father was a devotee of Srimati Radharani, and how he used to invite, sadhus to his house and say, oh, please bless my child to become such a devotee of Radharani. So Prabhupada says, even we were fortunate to be born in the family of devotees. Right? And then he says, like, even other Vaishnavas, we read how they take birth in family of devotees. Now, towards the end of the purport, Prabhupada actually makes a distinction between a Nitya Siddha and a Sadhana Siddha. Okay, and why is he giving this point here? Because if you actually say that Parikshit Maharaj or Pandavas, let's say, they are always devotees of Krishna. So they are actually Nitya Siddha, right? But someone like Narad Muni we read in the first canto, how he actually got the association of the Mahabhagavad, and then he became a devotee, then that is Sadhana Siddha. So Nitya Siddha is one who never falls, is always a pure devotee, he never falls into Maya. But Sadhana Siddha is one who actually practices bhakti and comes to a stage of perfection. But once they have come to a stage of perfection, then it does not matter whether one is a Sadhana Siddha or a Nitya Siddha. So this point is important because, sometimes in the Gaudiya tradition, or, even in other tradition, they say that you have to accept a guru who is only a Nitya Siddha. You have to accept a guru who is only a Nitya Siddha. Who is other examples of Nitya Siddha? We know Bhakti Vinod Thakur, Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur, all Nitya Siddha, because we know that they are a particular personality in the spiritual world. There are some manjaris, and then they have just come down here to fulfill, to give us that process of bhakti. Right? So they are Nitya Siddha. Right? Now, some of them say that, oh, you should accept a guru only who is Nitya Siddha. But the point is actually made here that when you actually consider, even in Bhagavatam, we read the example of Narad Muni. Such a glorious personality. He's a sadhana siddha. He's not a nitya siddha that way. He's a sadhana siddha. And then also the point is actually made that whenever you read the qualifications of a guru anywhere in the Shastra, nowhere does it mention that guru has to be a nitya siddha, or it compares that to a sadhana siddha. And then Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu himself said, Kiba Vipra, Kiba Nyasi, Shudra Kenanaya, whether one is a Shudra, wherever one is, it does not matter as long as he knows Krishna Tattva Veti, say Guru. So making distinction of a Guru based on being sadhana or nitya siddha, that is not right. And whatever the past the particular Vaishnava Guru may have is actually totally immaterial. So, it is sometimes even I have heard this, that people actually compare, oh, this person before he was so and so, now he's acting as a guru. But once someone has become a guru, one should not even care what is their previous history. He has actually become a siddha. Whatever was a history before, that is actually immaterial. So there's no difference between nitya siddha and sadhana siddha once they have attained perfection. As you Sanatana Goswami, in Brihad Bhagavatamrita, he actually says that the sadhana siddhas are better because their devotion have already been tested. Because their devotion is already tested. Like how Narad Muni, he has his challenges and he came to. So he makes a point. But we have to consider that one way, no difference between sadhana and nitya. Okay, text 16.
Vayasakishcha Bhagavan Vasudeva Parayanaha Urugaya Gunodara Satam Syurhi Samagame.
Hare Krishna translation. Sukadeva Goswami, the son of Vyasadeva, was also full in transcendental knowledge and was a great devotee of Lord Krishna, son of Vasudeva. So there must have been discussion of Lord Krishna, who was glorified by great philosophers and in the company of great devotees. Hare Krishna.
So 15, he glorified Parikshit Maharaj, such a great devotee. Even from childhood, he was actually imitating Krishna, glorifying Krishna. Now 16, they glorify Sukadeva Goswami. They say Vayasaki. Vayasaki is who? The son of Vyasadeva, right? Vayasaki. So Sukadeva Goswami. Jab Bhagavan. Bhagavan here referring to, he's full with transcendental knowledge. He's omniscient, right? Vasudeva Parayanaha. Vasudeva Parayana means who's a devotee of Krishna. So he is also such a great devotee of Krishna. So Sukadeva Goswami, great devotee, Parikshit, great devotee, right? And Prabhupada in the purport actually says the word cha in the first line refers to both Parikshit and Sukadeva Goswami are on the same level. Now Prabhupada brings up a very interesting point. He says Parikshit Maharaj was actually what? Such a great king with all these royal opulences, right? And then what is the state of Sukadeva Goswami? He is so renowned that he does not even wear a cloth. He walks naked. Irrespective of their status, which is actually totally opposite. One is a great king, one is a total renouncer. Irrespective of that, they both are pure devotees of Krishna. So that's a very important point, that the externals actually does not matter in one's devotion to Krishna. And there's a point that again and again comes up in the Srimad Bhagavatam. The externals do not matter in our devotion to Krishna. So Prabhupada makes that point. So superficially, they both are opposites, but both of them are unalloyed devotees of Krishna. And then it says Urugaya Gunodaraha. Urugaya means of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is glorified by great philosophers. Guna Udaraha, who has great qualities. And then Satam Sur Hi Samagame. Right? So in that assembly where Sukadeva Goswami is there, Maharaj Parikshit, such glorious devotees, then certainly that has to be glorification of Krishna. Hence you speak that glorification of Krishna. Okay? Okay. Next verse. Next verse is also a very important verse. Maybe few of you already know it, but if you don't, then you can memorize this verse.
Ayurharati Vaipumsam Udyan Astam Chayannaso Tasyarte Yat Kshano Nita Uttama Shloka Vartaya.
Who's next?
Vijay Mataji.
Both by rising and by setting, the sun decreases the duration of life of everyone except one who utilizes the time by discussing topics of the all good personality of Godhead.
So Saunak Rishi is actually saying, if we don't discuss Harikatha, then our life is just wasted. So you please continue speaking Harikatha, because then, only then will we actually like have a long duration of life. One way. Ayur Harati Vaipamsa, duration of life decreases certainly. Udyan Ashtam, rising and setting of the sun. So both by rising and setting of the sun, this is actually taking away the duration of life of everyone. So let's not waste even a single moment. Speak Harikatha right now. So that's what they are telling Suta Goswami, right? And then Rite means except for those Shana Nitaha who utilize their time for Tasya Uttama Shloka Vartaya. They use their time for glorification of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Now, what does this mean? Like, though devotees don't grow old, devotees are discussing Harikatha, right? But they grow old, right? So isn't time affecting them? Like sun is rising, sun is setting, and isn't it affecting like devotees, non-devotees? We see they one way externally go through the same cycle. So how does this verse actually, how do we understand this verse? That the duration life is taken away for all materialists except for the devotees of the Lord who are already discussing Harikatha. So, okay. So one point. So Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, he actually makes a point that, even actually what to talk about the entire life, even if one moment of our life is actually used in glorification of Krishna or hearing Harikatha, that life is successful. Otherwise, the life is a waste. The sun is rising and setting and is taking away one's life. So, I mentioned the story last time, how Prabhupada talks about the story that he met a person who is a son of a king, who's a devotee, who is a person who's in austerity, and a person who is a butcher, and he gives different benediction. What's the benediction he gives to a devotee? Jivova Marova. You live or you die, it does not make a difference. Because while living, you're glorifying the Supreme Personality of God, and if you die, you'll continue glorification. So that's the life of a devotee is already eternal, even right now. So the duration, the sun is rising and setting, but the devotee is engaged in his eternal occupation of glorification of Krishna. So that lifespan as such does not matter. But one may still argue that, no, I have seen devotees, they grow old. So the sun is affecting their life. But Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur is actually explaining, no, this is not there. Because for pure devotees, when they get old age, they have the sickness. What is that? That is all appearing by the will of the Lord. Why? To increase the longing of the devotees for Krishna. So when a devotee is, sometimes we see even, senior devotees, they have sicknesses or like, disease and all those things, that you can understand that this is just to increase the longing of that devotee for Krishna. It is actually occurring by the will of the Lord, and then he gives other reasons. So first thing is appearing by the will of the Lord. Second thing, increase the longing of the devotee for the Lord. Third thing, letting opinions of others not be destroyed. What does that mean? Letting opinions of others not being destroyed? That's because Krishna has thought of like karma yoga, dhyana yoga, jnana yoga, and people are attached to all these things. But if they see a devotee, and if they see how a devotee is actually not going through that, through the cycle of birth, old age, disease and all, then, their opinion will not hold value. But Krishna says, okay, if that's what you want, then you can actually continue, right? So letting opinions of others not be destroyed. Then he also, by protecting the confidential nature of devotional service. What does that mean? If a devotee, he actually becomes like, free from old age and he's always youthful, then what is the thing? Then all the people will actually approach such a devotee. For what? Fulfilling their material desires. They say, oh, you are such a saint. You please give me good wife, give me a lot of property. So they will simply disturb a devotee. So and going through that old age, death, and sickness, it protects the confidential nature of a devotee, right? And certainly not caused by karma. So these are points that even though a devotee may go through that old age, disease, and death, but that is different from how a materialist is going through old age, disease, and death. Right? For devotee, it is happening by the will of the Lord for increasing his longing and to actually protect bhakti, and is not caused by time. But for a materialist, it is all just the rising sun is one day, sun rises and sets, and if that day is not used for glorification of Krishna, then that day is simply wasted. So Prabhupada in the purport, he actually says, time and tide wait for no man. Right? A moment which is lost without connecting with Krishna, without glorification of Krishna, cannot be regained even if one spends millions of dollars. Okay. And then Prabhupada makes us a beautiful point. He says, hence, every moment of our life, we should actually connect with the Supreme Personality of Godhead in any one of the channels of bhakti. One could hear about him, one could chant his name. Somehow or other, we have to be in touch with Krishna. Right? And then Prabhupada actually makes this point. In between the purport, he says, as a highly potent drug injected intravenously acts at once on the whole body, the transcendental topics of the Lord, injected through the ear of the pure devotee of the Lord, can act very efficiently. Oral realization of the transcendental messages implies total realization. Right? So he's actually making the point, yes, one can connect to Krishna in any way, right? But if we actually hear Harikatha from the lips of a pure devotee, and when that enters our ear, that is just like injecting like an injection, which actually, the drug immediately goes all through the body. So it is just like that powerful, right? Injecting the transcendental transcendental topics of the Lord through the ears. And oral realization is actually the transcendent, implies total realization. Just as fructification of one part of a tree implies fructification of all other parts. So yes, all these processes are there, but all of them is actually finally realized only by giving submissive oral reception to the words coming from the spiritual master. Yeah, so that's the move. Okay. And then further, there's another example that's actually given. So the example of charity is given. So it says charity, when a charity is given to a non-Brahmana, right? When charity is given to a non-Brahmana, then money is returned in the next life at the same proportion. You give $100 to a non-Brahmana, next lifetime you may get $100 back, or maybe a different currency, but you'll get that money back, right? You'll get that much opulence back. Now, if you give that charity to a half-educated Brahmana, then that same, how much you gave, you'll get double of that. Now, if you give it to a learned and fully qualified Brahmana, then that return is 100 to 1,000 times. But if you actually give it to a devotee of Krishna, one who is a Veda Paraga, who has understood the Vedas, who has come to a point of devotion, if you give him some charity, then the return is unlimited. Similarly, so you're talking of giving charity to a devotee, the return is unlimited. Similarly, if you give your time to a pure devotee, then that return is unlimited. That means one is guaranteed going back home, back to God. That perfection is there. So Prabhupada elaborates on the example of charity, and he says, similarly, a moment, a time, if you actually give it to a devotee of the Lord, then there's perfect guarantee of going back home, back to God. So he's comparing the investment of money and the investment of time. And that's what people have, right? Either money or time. That's what we focus on. Investment of money, investment of time. Okay. Next verse. Let's go to text 18.
Paravakim na jivanti, pastrakim na shvasantuta, na kadanti na mehanti, kim grame pashavo pare.
Hare Krishna. Do the trees not live? Do the billows of the blacksmith not breathe? All around us, do the beasts not eat and discharge semen? Hare Krishna.
So what is the connection now? And actually from this verse onwards, is actually, so 17 is saying the best use of our time is to hear Harikatha. If we don't use, then our duration of life will simply be taken away. Now, further, he's actually making the point. He's saying it is not a question of duration of life, because the trees, they live a much longer life than human beings. Then someone may say, well, you're breathing, but actually the bellows, the ironsmith, they have those bellows for iron, right? So the bellows, they breathe more strongly than human beings. And then eating and mating, actually the animals are even better than that. Like, and this point continues in the next verse, and he actually makes a point that the whole point is finally to come to the point of Jatu Nama Gadagrajaha. Right? We just want to engage in glorification of the Supreme Personality of God. Nothing else. Life, breathing, engaging in all other activities, they have no meaning unless they come to the point of hearing the transcendental pastimes of the Lord and the holy name of the Lord. Right? So he says Taravo referring to trees. Do the trees not live? Right? Prabhupada gives the example of like Imlital in Vrindavan. So that tree was there from the time of Lord Sri Krishna, 5,000 years before. Then in California, there was redwood trees. 2,000 years is their lifespan. So if it's not a question of just increasing our lifespan, the question is that of Harikatha. Right? Then it says Bhasra, bellows, they don't breathe. Then Pashava, animals, do they not eat? They are not discharged semen, right? Apare means persons who are engaged in planning better type of animal life. So basically two-legged animal, how Prabhupada said, two-legged animals. All those people. Right? So they are all criticized. I mean, the point is actually said that, if you are focusing on other items, whether it's long life and breathing and taking care of, it actually does not matter. The other living entities are better than that. Human form of life is meant for hearing Harikatha. That's the point. Okay. So Prabhupada in the purport, he actually says how people, they have the concept of human form of life is meant for what? Khao, piyo, moj karo. Right? So Prabhupada says, they say, this for eat, drink, and be merry. That's what people consider the human form of life. And because they consider that that is the aim of life, they feel like, oh, we have to just try to extend it for long. So then they have some medical inventions and all those things just so that we can have a long period of life. But if you just compare, what is the use of your long period of life? That tree is living for 2,000 years. Is your life more important than that? Yours is maybe from 70 years, you extend it to 80 years. The tree is 2,000 years. What is the comparison? So it is not a question of how long one lives, but how meaningful one's life is. That is the main point, right? And that meaningful is only when Harikatha is spoken. Okay, next verse. It continues on the same theme actually.
Shvavid varahoshtra karai samstutaha purusha pashuhu nayat karna patopeto jatu nama gadagrajaha.
Okay, who's next?
Myself. Men who are like dogs, hogs, camels, and asses praise those men who never listen to the transcendental pastimes of Lord Krishna, the deliverer from evils.
Swavid Varaha Hostra Karai. We have heard Prabhupada in lectures, right? He uses these for animals. It's from this verse. Dogs, hogs, camels, and asses. Prabhupada says the material civilization is just a civilization of dogs, hogs, camels, and asses. It's right here from this verse. Swa means a dog, with Varaha, a hog who eats stool, Ushtra, camel, and Karahi means ass. Right? So this verse is actually saying that yes, you're talking of like, oh, he increased his life from 70 to 80 years. He made this, very powerful medicine and it is going to give long life. Yes, such people are glorified, but glorified by who? By animals, people who have these animal qualities. So with so Prabhupada in the purpose is the general mass of people, unless they are trained systematically in the higher principles of life, their life is just like these animals. And then Prabhupada gives a very heavy purport to this. He says modern university education is just teaching everyone to become dogs. Prabhupada is like so heavy. Modern university education is just teaching us to become dogs. And why? Because the education you study, you get a master's, and then after that, just like a dog, you have to go to different places asking, please give me a job, please give me a job, please give me a job. And that is the dog mentality, right? Just like a dog, begging for a job. And then even if you get a job, then you have to become a faithful servant of that master. The master will say, do this, work for 18 hours, overtime today. And say, okay, I will do it. And what reward do we get? Very insufficient reward. This is basically our life, right? This is what we live. And Prabhupada says, the material civilization has actually created this doggish life. Right? Then he says hogs. Hogs, why hogs? Because, even now human beings, they don't make any discrimination in eating. And how they say, people eat anything that has 4 legs except a table. People eat anything that flies except an airplane. And people eat anything that swims in water except a submarine. So people have like no discrimination of what to eat and what not to eat. Hence, they are just like hogs, because hogs, they eat stool, right? And then camel. Camel, why is a comparison of materialistic people to camel? Because camel, they take pleasure in eating thorns. And when they eat thorns, is all their mouth is like cut and there's blood. And then they taste their own blood and say, oh, so tasty. Similarly, materialist people, they engage in sex activities. And sex, basically, when you discharge semen, each drop of semen is considered like 60 drops of blood. So that small enjoyment is wasting just our own blood. And then for ass, Prabhupada says, ass is like the greatest fool. People work so hard and they hardly get any profit. And then at the night time, when they have to enjoy sex, then they are just kicked by the opposite sex, just like a donkey is kicked by the fair sex. So Prabhupada gives a very heavy and descriptive purport of how the current civilization is just a civilization of dogs, hogs, camels, and asses. So what is the point here? The point that Sonam Krishi is actually telling that if we actually don't hear Hari Katha, then our life is actually just like these hogs, dogs, camels, and asses. And we may be glorified for certain achievements by these kind of people. But what is the use? Who wants to be glorified by dog-like people? Our only purpose is Gada Graja. What is Gada Graja? Agraja, Gada Graja is a name for Krishna, but particularly Gada is actually one of there are different meanings. One meaning is Gada actually refers to the brother of Baladev. Right? So there, Agraja means the elder brother of Gada. So Gada Graja. So that is one name of Krishna. But here in this context, why is Gada Graja mean? Here Gada Graja means he who appears in front of sickness. The Gada means sickness. One who appears in front of sickness as his enemy. One who can actually kill that sickness. That is Gada Graja. Right? So this materialistic mentality can be killed when we actually bring Krishna, right? Who can actually defeat the sickness of our material enjoyment. And Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, he gives a further interesting point. He says, even the dog will not accept the quality of an ass or a camel. But human beings are so much in mode of passion that they are accepting the qualities of all these 4 different kinds of animals. That is how much the human beings are in the mode of passion, that they just accept the qualities of these 4 degraded animals. Okay, next verse 20.
Bile baturu krama vikramanye nashrinvata karna putena rasya jivasati dar durikeva suta natro pagat yat yurugaya gataha. One who has not listened to the messages about the prowess and marvelous acts of the personality of Godhead, and has not sung or chanted loudly the worthy songs about the Lord, is to be considered to possess ear holes like the holes of snakes and a tongue like the tongue of a frog.
Right. So in the previous verse, he criticized, like, the whole person is criticized if he has not used his body for hearing Harikatha, right? The whole person. Now he is criticizing each limb. Okay, each limb. So he starts off by saying bile. Bile means snake hole, right? So he says the snake hole, and then butter is like karnapute. So our ear is compared to the ear of a snake hole. To the whole of a ear is compared to a snake hole. If urukrama vikrama, so it says if we are not hearing the message of Krishna, then our ears are just compared to the ear of the hole of a snake, right? And then jiva, it says jiva. The tongue is compared to what? Dardurika, the croaking of a frog, right? If the tongue is not actually used for speaking Harikatha, right? If upagayati, if we don't sing the glories of Krishna, then our tongue is just compared to the tongue of a frog. And why is this comparison? Because the point is made that the frogs, they keep croaking, right? But that invites what? That invites the snake to actually come and eat the frog, right? So similarly, if we use our tongue for just speaking all this nonsense, then we are just inviting the death to actually come and overtake us. So that is this comparison. And also the word asati is actually used here. Asati means an unchaste woman, right? A woman who will destroy all of one's piety. So he says if a tongue is actually used for speaking any other words other than Krishna Katha, then our position is just like that of an unchaste woman. Because our tongue is actually meant, it belongs to Krishna, it is meant to be used in service of Krishna, but it is used for some other purpose, serving Maya, then that is just like an unchaste woman. So, okay. So Prabhupada in the purport, he actually elaborates that how each sense is actually meant for service to the Lord, right? Rishikesha, Rishikena Sevana Bhaktir Uchate. Right? What is the definition of pure devotional service? That is engaging each sense in the service of the Lord of the senses, which is Rishikesha. So if you see this table right here, this is from Subodhini, where if you see text 21, 20, all the way to the end of the chapter, actually till 24 is basically the same comparison. So where it says the ear hole is compared to the holes of a snake, if it's not used for listening the glories of the Lord. The tongue is compared to the tongue of a frog. If you're not singing and chanting the glories of the Lord, then next verse says the upper body, so if you put a nice silk turban on the upper body, it is only a heavy burden if it is not used for bowing down before the Lord, right? Our hands, even though we may have like nice beautiful bangles, it is just like the hands of a dead man if they are not engaged in service of the Lord, right? Our eyes, right? So I'm just going through the main points. The eyes is just compared to the plumes of a peacock feather. If our eyes are not used for seeing the form of the Lord. The legs are compared to tree trunks if they are not used for coming to the temple, to actually doing service in the temple, to going to the holy dham. And the person itself, so up to 22 is all different limbs. Then again 23, he's again coming back to the whole person, and he's saying person is just like a dead person if he has not received the dust of the feet of the pure devotees on his head, or he's actually smelled the tulsi offered to the lotus feet of the Lord. And then 24 says the heart is steel framed. If after hearing the holy name, we don't cry tears of ecstasy, then our heart is actually said to be steel framed. Okay. And then last verse 25 actually says, therefore speak Harikatha, because that is what we are meant for. Otherwise, each one of our limbs, each one of our body, our entire existence is simply waste if you are not engaging Harikatha. So immediately right now, please speak Harikatha that happened between Sukadeva Goswami and Maharaj Parikshit. Okay. So that's how this chapter ends. So in the last few verses, I will maybe next time I'll go a little bit deeper into the purports, but just to get you the whole flow of the chapter. Okay, so we'll stop here. So let's see, everyone can maybe share one point that you liked, and then we will end the session. Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, I like this point. Even just a moment passed in association of a pure devotee by hearing and chanting the transcendental message of the Lord is a perfect guarantee for eternal life. Going back to Godhead.
Yes. That you can meditate on the example of charity, like one by one. The highest is charity is a devotee. Similarly, if you give your time to a pure devotee, then guaranteed unlimited success. Thank you.
Prabhuji, I have one question.
Yes, ma'am.
You said that the 4 points, the sickness of a devotee is to increase the longing to the Lord. It's happening by the will of the Lord, and protecting the confidential nature of the devotee. And the one point I did not get it.
Is letting the opinions of others not be destroyed.
Oh, can you explain?
Yeah, so the point is like, see, why in Bhagavad Gita or any of the Shastras does Krishna talk about Jnana Yoga, Dhyana Yoga, when the essence of everything is bhakti?
Yeah, what is the question?
Like,
I was right.
in Bhagavad
Sorry.
Gita and different Shastra, like the essence of everything is bhakti.
Bhakti, yes.
Why does Krishna actually talk about karma, jnana, astanga, all these different processes?
Because different people are at different levels, and
Yes,
yeah.
exactly. So that's the same point. So for a devotee, if a devotee is actually showing that symptom of just, not transforming body or like this changes, then people who are attached to different processes, because Krishna wants to give freedom for everyone. He is actually giving us that free will. So that, that devotee exhibiting that, what do we say, the eternal life, even while in this body, will actually not give room for the other opinions to even exist.
Okay.
So it is like one way the mercy of Krishna that he's actually giving. He said like, okay, if you don't want to take bhakti, at least do this process by which you will come to me. At least do gyan, do this. So Krishna wants to maintain that, and hence he actually hides that the glory of that devotee. That makes sense, I think?
Yeah, yes, Prabhuji. Thank you so much.
Okay, any other points?
Hare Krishna. Increased lifespan does not matter, and prolonged life without spiritual value is not very important.
Yes. Prolonged life without, you may have a long life, but if it's not used for glorification of Krishna, then what is the use? It is not meaningful life. Thank you. Yes.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji. I like the flow of the chapter, like, where he talks about Manishina, and, first he takes out of everyone who is not taken to the path, understand the soul, and then takes to the next level, who worship the demigods, and he gives that the verse that the 10th verse, which is the essence of all, like Nakama Sarva Kama Moksha, and then he explains also the how each and every limb is important, is wasted, like so much detail, and like a summary, and then so much detail. I like this chapter, the flow, probably.
Thank you for summarizing chapter nicely. Thank you. Okay, any other points?
Bro, I really, when you mentioned that the Vedas are like orders, Puranas are like friends speaking, and Kavyas are like lovers speaking. Srimad Bhagavatam is combined. So I was like literally thinking of the verse, like when you, Mad Guru Mad Mahadana Mad, that verse,
Yes.
It's like, it's so sweet that Srimad Bhagavatam can be my friend as well as my lover, as well as an instructing spiritual master. So,
thank you for that.
very beautiful.
Yes. Anyone else?
Hare Krishna Prabhuji, I like the point that the past of a pure devotee doesn't matter. Anyone who knows the science of Krishna is a guru, and the human form of life is meant for hearing Krishna Katha. So if that Guru is always telling you Krishna Katha, Krishna, 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 right? He is a pure devotee of the Lord, a bona fide Guru.
Guru is one who knows the way, goes the way, shows the way. Thank you. Yes. Yeah.
I like the point about the orally hearing about Krishna from a pure devotee is such a powerful injection, like a medicine that's injected in this bloodstream. It's so powerful, more powerful than any other process. Purifies us.
Oral realization is complete realization. Prabhupada makes a very oral. Giving that is actually complete realization. Because with that, if you're giving that time to a pure devotee, with that words comes actually the mercy of the pure devotees, and that mercy of the pure devotee is the highest perfection.
And just to add to that, I really like the point that you made about Dhruva and Indra, and how Dhruva, the differences Dhruva orally gave her that time to Narada Muni, and he got the mercy and blessings of a pure devotee, and that made a difference. And yeah, so we're so lucky we have Srila Prabhupada's mercy. That's the only difference, that we can.
Thank you. Yeah. Yes.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. Yeah, this is very, very important. I mean, the Srila Prabhupada explained each and every purport in very detail. So, I mean, I have to understand. And the main thing is we have to use each and every moment, or the Harikatha, like tongue, we have to use that one. But otherwise, like sun is coming every day, rising and setting, and taking a ayu harati. So we have to be very careful each and every moment. Do not waste time in material stuff.
Yes.
Hare Krishna.
Not a moment we waste. And also we read about like how we want to use every limb of our body.
Yes, every.
So
Yes.
every limb at every moment in Krishna's service. So,
Yes.
thank you.
Thank you, Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji.
Yes.
Pranam. Prabhuji, one point is like even we ask for Visaya Sukha, Krishna gives the real nectar. So,
yeah, we ask for Visha, but Krishna says, why should I give him poison? I will give him Amrita, the nectar of my lotus feet. Very nice. Thank you. Okay, we'll stop here. Thank you so much. So this week I'll post like a homework. So that will be basically this entire third chapter, reading and some sharing of realizations. Okay. Thank you so much. Shri Bhagavatam ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Vancha Kalpatarubhyasya Kripa Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavi. Thank you so much for your association.
Thank you.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Thank you so
Thank
much,
you so much,
Prabhuji.
Prabhuji.
Thank you,
Krishna. Thank
Prabhuji.
you.
Hare
thank you
Krishna.
very much, Prabhuji. Dhanat Pranam.
Thank you all.
Pranam
Hare
to all.
Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Thank you so much, Babuji. Then Pranam. Hare
Thank
Krishna.
you.
Hare Krishna.